Chapter 1270. The divine wills that swept across the sky and the surroundings of Zhenling's sect's encampment exclaimed in amazement. However, at this moment, Zhenling's sect's encampment beneath the Dao soldier formation suddenly emitted a rhythmic wave of spiritual qi, and it quickly spread to the surroundings. Soon, a large array shield that emitted a five-colored light soared into the sky, firmly protecting the entire Zhenling sect within it. At this critical moment, the formation of the Zhenling station was also formed. Screwed, who would have thought that even this sect would be screwed? The scattered divine senses of the cultivators from various sects who were hiding in the surrounding void to watch the show were once again filled with a new emotion. They were gloating. After all, the Dao soldier formation was made up of dozens of core forging stage cultivators. Faced with the partial siege of two great cultivators, although the formation shared the damage and increased the defensive power, the Zhenling disciples who were directly facing the two great cultivators still inevitably suffered injuries. Although it did not affect the operation of the Dao soldier formation for a while, as time went on, the formation would inevitably collapse under the internal and external attacks and harassment attacks of the three great cultivators. The Dao soldier formation descended slowly. Obviously, it needed to borrow the power of the station's defense formation. The defense formation, which was set up by spiritual master Mysterious Fox with the help of the Five Elements Ring and the reference of the Wuxing School's Five Elements formation, was naturally extraordinary. Once the Dao soldier formation returned to the station, with the power of the defense formation, the two great cultivators who were harassing and attacking from the periphery could only sigh helplessly. However, if the two of them retreated at this time, the second great cultivator who was trapped in the formation would obviously be captured alive. In desperation, the two of them could only attack the station's formation, hoping that the hastily built defense formation of Zhenling would have an irreparable flaw. However, before the two of them could do anything, a sharp sword whistle pierced through the sky and sounded from behind them. When the two of them turned to look, their expressions changed. A pair of flying swords had already cut through the void and went straight for the head of the great cultivator who was surrounded by black fog. "It's Lu Tunping!" The great cultivator who was surrounded by black fog cried out involuntarily. He retreated as if he had seen a ghost. "Why the fuck are you running?" On the other side, the great cultivator who had been attacking the formation barrier with him couldn't help but curse aloud upon seeing this. Unfortunately, the enemy's reinforcements had returned, and one of their own was fleeing as if possessed, so he naturally couldn't stay here for long. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat as well. However, Zhenling was not willing to give up after suffering such a big loss. At the same time, Lu Ping forced the Black Fog Great Cultivator to retreat with his sword. At the same time, Lao Zhu of Tianshan also let out a roar and broke through the sky, directly striking the back of the last great cultivator who appeared. The great cultivator was stunned. Originally, he had underestimated the opponent because he was a mid-Dharma Laws stage cultivator. However, when he Dao soldier was Zong, he was mountain. He pulled out the jade belt from his waist and immediately turned it into a jade whip. Impressively, it was a first tribulation spirit treasure. After a crisp whip sound, the jade whip wrapped around the handle of the mountain axe, causing the forward momentum of the axe to slow down. The great cultivator took the opportunity to escape from the pursuit of the mountain axe. He seemed to be very relaxed. However, in the end, he did not dare to face the mountain axe head-on. In the end, Lao Zhu of Tianshan could not do anything to this person. However, just as this person escaped the pursuit of the mountain axe, two exclamations sounded almost at the same time. "Wang Shiqing, how could it be you?" The great cultivator was shocked. When he turned around, he saw that the black fog around his companion, who was surrounded by black fog, had disappeared. The true face of Lu Shan was immediately revealed in front of the cultivators of Zhenling. The previous exclamation was made when the black fog around him was dispersed. However, the other exclamation was made by Lu Ping, who had used the netherwater sword to cut and dissolve the black fog around the cultivator while he was escaping, revealing his true face. The great cultivator surrounded by black fog was actually the second-generation cultivator of the Blue Sea sect, Wang Shiqing. Lu Ping remembered this person very clearly. When this person was captured by Lu Ping, his foundation was directly damaged, and there was no possibility of him improving his cultivation in this life. However, the Wang Shiqing who appeared in front of Lu Ping now had the cultivation of a late Dharma Laws stage cultivator. How could this not shock Lu Ping? This shock really caught Lu Ping off guard. After the third great cultivator got rid of Lao Zu of Tianshan, he grabbed Wang Shiqing and looked at the Dao soldier formation unwillingly. Then, the two of them turned into a gust of wind and flew out together, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Lu Tianyuan, Tian Tian, Lu Hai, Qin Yu, and Qin Gang rushed over. They saw Lu Ping and Lao Zu of Tianshan floating in the air outside the formation. Both of their faces were full of shock. The four of them could not help but feel their hearts sink. Tian Tian hurriedly went forward and said, "Senior brother Lu, the situation, how is the situation?" Lu Ping was stunned and hurriedly looked at the 3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation that was running in the formation. He forced a smile and said, Fortunately, we came in time." Seeing their strange expressions, Tian Tian knew that it was not the time to ask about this. He hurriedly called Lu Tianyuan to enter the 5 elements Dao soldier formation and immediately participated in the 3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation. This Dao soldier formation was the sect guarding formation of Zhenling. Almost all the disciples of Zhenling could control it with ease. Lu Ping and Lao Zu of Tianshan looked at each other, suppressed the shock in their hearts, and immediately entered the Dao soldier formation. Although Mara's army was frightened by Lu Ping's supreme magic power several tens of miles away, they did not retreat. On the contrary, when Mara pressed forward again, perhaps the gathered forces would be even stronger. Zhenling had to eliminate all hidden dangers before Mara's army arrived. Lu Ping's divine will swept across the sky. Lu Ping's divine will, which was flickering with green soul fire, was exposed without any reservation. His divine will, which was almost comparable to that of a pure yang cultivator, immediately swept up a whirlwind of divine will within a radius of several miles. All the cultivators hiding in midair were so frightened that they retreated. The divine wills that crisscrossed above Zhenling's station were instantly swept away. When Zhenling's divine will was united, the great cultivator trapped in the Dao soldier formation could no longer struggle, especially after Lu Ping and Lao Zu of Tianshan joined in. A great cultivator had become Zhenling's captive. While the great cultivator was busy, Lu Ping suddenly launched a sneak attack. Beams of sword light flew out of Lu Ping's fingertips and silently sank into the blood vessels around the great cultivator's back, completely blocking the circulation of his essential essence. The great cultivator's expression changed dramatically, and the Dharma idol in his core space was about to break out. Unexpectedly, a palm suddenly appeared on the back of his heart, and a copious amount of Zhenyuan seeped into his body, following the blocked blood vessels and completely sealing the space in his heart. If he tried to summon his Dharma idol by force, the space in his heart would definitely collapse without the support of his Dharma idol. The great cultivator panicked, and he did not dare to make the slightest movement. "That's right," Lu Ping said softly behind him. Then he patted the back of the great cultivator's head and knocked him out. Then he pointed a finger at the great cultivator's forehead. A green flame seeped into the great cultivator's head through his fingertip, and a look of pain flashed across the great cultivator's face. Lu Ping snorted coldly and pressed his palm on the great cultivator's chest again. A stream of dense purplish-blue essential essence was injected into the great cultivator's chest along with a faint roar. The great cultivator immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. "What's wrong?" Lao Zu of Tianshan asked curiously when he saw that Lu Ping was so cautious and even injured the great cultivator while he was unconscious. Lu Ping smiled and said, "These great cultivators have too many tricks up their sleeves. It's impossible to guard against them. So, we might as well injure his core. Even if he still has some strange tricks up his sleeve, he won't be able to do anything with his current strength." Lao Zu of Tianshan's mouth twitched. He was very clear about the consequences of injuring his core. This could be considered as a death feud. However, when the great cultivator took advantage of the situation, he obviously didn't leave a way out for Zhenling. Since the great cultivator was captured by Lu Ping, Laozu of Tianshan couldn't say anything. However, he could feel that the current Lu Ping was less cautious than before and more ruthless and overbearing. However, when he thought about Lu Ping's current strength and achievements, Laozu of Tianshan felt relieved. The truth of the cultivation world was always the one with the bigger fist. Lu Ping looked at Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu of Tianshan, and asked, "Are the two martial granduncles all right?" Tian Shui Laozu touched the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth and said, "It's fine. These are just some minor injuries caused by the turbulence of essential essence. After calming down, there won't be any major problems." Lu Ping nodded his head. Although the two Laozu of Tianshan no longer had the possibility of advancing into the great cultivator realm, their cultivation had become more and more profound. Even though they were suppressed by the two great cultivators earlier, they didn't suffer any serious injuries. A trace of worry flashed past Tianfan Laozu's face. "Let's see who this person is first." At this moment, Lu Ping seemed to have thought of something and said coldly, "Who else could it be?" He extended his hand and wiped the face of the great cultivator who had fainted on the ground. A slightly pale middle-aged cultivator's face was revealed. Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian, who were bewildered earlier, seemed to have confirmed something. Lu Tianyuan said, "It's really them." Lu Ping looked at the two of them. Although Lu Ping's reputation had risen in Middle-earth, the ones who had truly traveled around Middle-earth were Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian. In terms of the famous cultivators in Middle-earth's cultivation world, Lu Ping didn't know as much as the two of them. Tian Tian took a deep breath and said, "Supreme Xian Sec's Wind Rain Dual Whips. The one who escaped earlier should be the Wind Whip Han Wuya, and this one should be the Rain Whip Huo Wun." The Wind Rain Dual Whips are two of the Supreme Xian Sec's famous great cultivators. The Wind Rain Dual Whips in their hands are a treasure that is not inferior to a second tribulation spiritual treasure. Back then, the two of them joined forces and managed to escape from the seven Fan Laozu's hands. That's how they became famous in the cultivation world. In today's battle, it's obvious that the two of them were too arrogant, or perhaps they were unwilling to reveal their identities. Otherwise, if the two whips joined forces, it would be difficult for us to capture either one of them. Chapter 1271. Taixin Sect. This heavy name of the sect was like a huge rock pressing down on the hearts of many Jinling cultivators, making it difficult for them to breathe for a while. This was a large, established sect that had been fighting with Tianxin sect for many years. Its strength was naturally not something that a large sect like Hudu sect could compare with. After all, they could force Tianxin sect to retreat all the way. Even if they had the support of a holy land, they would not have been used as a tool by a holy land if they were not strong enough. Lu Ping did not care too much about this. Taixin sect had tried to collude with Songhai sect a long time ago and expressed hostility towards Lu Ping. In Lu Ping's opinion, this hostility was most likely because of the contact between Jinling and Tianxin sect. Jinling wanted to become a large sect, so it had to choose a large sect in Central Plains to build an ultra-long distance transmission array. Whether it was Tianxin sect or Tianyue sect, it was a test for Jinling. Whether it was Tianxin sect's old rival, Taixin sect, or Crystal Palace, which had been blocked by Tianyue sect from expanding its strength into Central Plains, they would not be indifferent to the possibility of these two sects receiving strong support from a large sect. These were serious tests that Jinling had to face in order to rise. Even if Lu Ping had been in another large sect, he would have encountered similar situations. What he was more concerned about was Wang Shiqing, who was previously covered by the black fog. This person's original foundation had been destroyed by Lu Ping using a secret technique, but now he had a solid late Dharma cultivation. In just a short period of nearly 100 years, how Wang Shiqing had recovered his original foundation, but he had pushed his cultivation from the early Dharma stage all the way to the late Dharma stage. This was really incredible. After all, going through 2 consecutive thunder tribulations was no joke. Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu, had clearly maintained sufficient vigilance towards Wang Shiqing's appearance. After all, the appearance of a single grand cultivator in the Northern Sea could be said to be a world-shaking event. However, before they came to the Northern Sea, The Azure Sea sect did not have any news regarding the appearance of a third grand cultivator. However, Wang Xiqing had suddenly appeared in the Middle Earth with the cultivation of a grand cultivator. If he were to return to the Northern Sea's cultivation world, it would definitely cause an uproar in the entire Northern Sea. When Lu Ping saw the strange expressions on the two Laozu's faces, he asked, "Martial Granduncles, did you discover anything unexpected in your fight with Wang Xiqing?" After some thought, Ancestor Tianfan said, "That's far too unbelievable, but now that I think about it, that Wang Xiqing did indeed give the two of us a feeling of déjà vu when we clashed earlier. I never thought he'd be a member of the Neptunian sect." Tian Fan and Tian Shuelaozu's suspicions had obviously disappeared after the other party revealed his identity as a Azure Sea sect cultivator. The two Laozu had been in the Northern Sea's cultivation world for close to 1,000 years. Naturally, they were very familiar with the Azure Sea sect's heritage. However, Lu Ping still had some doubts. He could not help but ask, "Martial Granduncles, don't you feel that this Wang Xiqing's appearance is too strange? The growth of his cultivation is really too unbelievable. In just 100 years, he went from the early Dharma stage to the late Dharma stage." Tian Shuelaozu's expression was filled with hatred. She said unhappily, "It must be the Taixin sect playing tricks behind the scenes. They must have used some secret technique or shortcut. I wonder what kind of price Wang Xiqing will have to pay." Lu Ping still had some doubts. He said, "How could the Taixin sect have such a miraculous secret technique?" Tian Shuelaozu paused for a moment before saying, "Even if the Taixin sect doesn't have it, the Wuxing school behind them might not have it. These holy lands have a long history and deep heritage. Who knows what kind of secret technique they have in their hands? This time, you consecutively killed the Wuxing school's two great disciples. You have offended them greatly. Who knows, it might be the Wuxing school who is behind this." Although Lu Ping still had some doubts in his heart, what Tian Shuelaozu said was not without reason. Lu Ping could only suppress the doubts in his heart. At this time, Mara's army in the Qingming River had regrouped and attacked again. This was not the time for Lu Ping to worry about other things. The 3 Talents and 5 Elements Great Formation had already been formed, and the garrison's defense array had also been successfully built. This 5 Elements Great Formation looked similar on the outside, but on the inside, it was different. Lu Ping was not afraid that the Wuxing school would be able to see through it. As long as he did not reveal the 5 Elements Ring, even Jin Chan Laozu himself would not know that the 5 Elements Great Formation that Zhenling had set up was the Wuxing school's formation technique. Tanshan Laozu asked again, "Then how should we deal with this Huo Wuyin? No matter what, he is still a hot potato, right?" Tian Fan and Tian Shuelaozu also did not know what to do. Lu Ping said straightforwardly, "Take away his storage artifact and his whip. Even if he wakes up, he will not be able to break free from the restriction disciple placed on him. Let's not bother with him for now. Let's talk about it after we get through Mara's attack." Just as Lu Ping and the others were preparing for the upcoming battle, the void outside the encampment trembled. The great cultivator from the Taixin sect who had escaped earlier suddenly appeared, causing a wave of nervousness in Zhenling's sect. However, after the great cultivator appeared, he hovered in mid-air and didn't make a move. Upon seeing this, Tianshan Laozu and Lu Ping rose into the air and arrived in front of the person. Lu Ping stared at the person with an unfriendly expression, sizing him up. This caused Han Weia to feel rather uncomfortable. He knew how powerful this third-generation great cultivator was. How many famous great cultivators in the Central Plains had already fallen at his hands? However, when he thought of the fact that the great cultivator from his own sect had become the other party's prisoner, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and come forward to negotiate with Zhenling. The great cultivators of the late Dharma Plain, the famous wind and rain dual whips, had fallen at the hands of a medium-sized sect, and one of them had even been captured. If news of this were to spread, wouldn't the Supreme Profound sect become the laughingstock of the Central Plains cultivation world? Moreover, the actions of the Supreme Profound sect this time were indeed a bit despicable. The reputation of looting a burning house was set in stone. Moreover, they were targeting a medium-sized sect, and if things went wrong, they would be suspected of colluding with Mara's army. This was really unreasonable. However, in his view, at this time, Zhenling was facing a great dilemma, and there was no reason for him to make another strong enemy. If he could pay a price to rescue his partner who had fallen into the other party's hands, it was not impossible. At least, it could save a little face for the supreme profound sect in the Central Plains. Thinking of this, Hanwia Laozu smiled and went straight to the point. What will it take for you to release my brother Hua? Huh? Lu Ping did not wait for Laozu of Tianshan to speak. He looked up to the sky and laughed, as if he had heard a joke, and said, "The supreme profound sect secretly lured Mara to attack our sect's encampment, and then ganged up to attack our sect. Now you want us to release him? What kind of logic is this? Since when has the supreme profound sect become so domineering in the Central Plains?" Han Wuya's expression changed and he said, "Don't slander us, sir. When we attacked, we did not know that Mara's army had arrived." Lu Ping said mockingly, "Do you think anyone will believe you? Why don't you go and explain to the various sects of the Central Plains?" Han Wuya laughed coldly and said, "I'm afraid there is no need for me to explain. I'm afraid that your sect's midway trip this time will vanish like smoke in thin air." Han Wuya paused and then said, "I'm afraid you still don't know, but Mara's army has increased again. And Azura has already brought 6 Jade Mara, 10 Blood Mara, and nearly 1,000 small and large Mara to meet up with the previous Mara team. At this time, they are not far from the encampment of your sect." Laozu of Tianshan's expression changed slightly, but he heard Lu Ping next to him say indifferently, "Sir, you also said that you have not colluded with Mara. Otherwise, how could you have investigated Mara's forces so carefully?" Han Wuya snorted coldly and said, "The old man is not willing to talk to you. In short, as long as you can release my junior martial brother Hua, you can state whatever conditions you have." Lu Ping chuckled but did not say anything else. Laozu of Tianshan, who was at the side, said, "That's fine. As long as you bring me that Wang Shiqing's head, we will release fellow Taoist Huowen. What do you think?" Han Wuya's expression changed and he said, "Fellow Taoist Wang is not a cultivator of our sect, so forgive me for not being able to do this." Laozu of Tianshan also seemed to know that this matter could not be used as a bargaining chip, and so he said, "Since you have appeared now, I presume that you have some understanding of the predicament that our sect is currently facing, and you have made preparations. This is fine as well. Then, please lead the Azura in Mara's army away. What does fellow Taoist Han think?" Han Wuya's expression changed, and he could not make up his mind for a moment. If there was only one Azura, and Han Wuya joined forces, then Wang Shiqing might be able to temporarily hold it back. But at this moment, 2 Azuras were leading an army of nearly 3,000 Mara. If they attacked together, not to mention 2 great cultivators joining forces, even 4 great cultivators joining forces would not dare to say that they would be able to draw out 1 Azura from Mara's army. If they were not careful, then the entire army might be wiped out. Han Wuya's expression darkened, and he simply revealed his true intentions. He said, "Your sect should think about the consequences of offending my supreme mystery sect." Lu Ping, who was at the side, sneered, "It seems that your sincerity is limited." "You can't say that." An unfamiliar voice came from the void not far from Han Wuya, and a cultivator in his 40s wearing a tall hat flashed out of the void. He said, "Brother Han naturally has sincerity, but your sect is too insatiable. After all, the Supreme Mystery Sect is a well-known large sect in the Central Plains, and is the backbone of the resistance against Mara's army. Your sect is only a poor, middle-sized sect. Relying on tricks to capture Brother Hua, you demand an exorbitant price, and this weakens the power of the cultivation world to resist Mara's army. Everyone, from the perspective of fighting against Mara, do you think that the cultivation world should support a so-called North Sea sect, or a large sect of the Central Plains?" Laozu of Tianshan said angrily, "I didn't think that there would be such a sophistry like you in the Central Plains." "Sophistry?" The cultivator with the tall hat swept a disdainful glance at Laozu of Tianshan, and said, "What I said is correct. The Central Plains is not a place where your North Sea sect can behave atrociously. In my opinion, this time, with Mara's counterattack, you, Zhenling, will not be able to resist it. Why don't you release Brother Hua, and then give this station to my sect? Then Mara's army will be resisted by my sect, and you, Zhenling, will at least be able to retreat unscathed. What do you think? Chapter 1272. Feiyun Pavilion was another large sect that was quite famous in Central Plains. Fellow Chu Yun, you're right. Han Huia clapped his hands and said, it's a small matter that you, Zhenling, can't stop the counterattack of Mara's army. If Mara's army opens up a gap in the encirclement that the cultivators of the various sects have painstakingly built, then it will be your sect's fault. At that time, I don't think your sect will be able to bear the condemnation of the cultivation world, right? If you let Junior Brother Hua out and hand this place over to Feiyun Pavilion to guard, the counterattack of Mara's army will definitely not be a problem. Furthermore, Zhenling won't lose a single soldier, so why not? The two of them echoed each other, vividly displaying the phrase, sophistry. Even someone as cultured as Tianshan Laozu was dumbfounded by the two of them. Meanwhile, Lu Ping was even more infuriated by the two of them. The mocking smile on Lu Ping's face made Chu Yun Laozu of the Feiyun Pavilion feel embarrassed. He said, "Brat, what are you so happy about? Don't think that just because you've defeated a few great cultivators that you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. There are also differences in strength among great cultivators. Do you think that you can already run amok in the cultivation world of Central Plains?" As they spoke, Mara's army had already reached the shore of Qingming River. Nearly 3,000 Mara's army, led by 3 Azuras, stopped about 1,000 feet away from Zhenling's encampment. "Brat, this is your last chance. Let fellow Hua go immediately, and the cultivators of Feiyun Pavilion will immediately enter this 5 elements formation to reinforce your sect. Otherwise, you can just wait for your entire army to be destroyed," the ancestor of the Chu Yun sect said sinisterly. However, at this moment, it became a joint effort to resist the evil Luo army. He had forgotten that Zhenling's sect wanted to remove the 5 elemental great formation and that their flying cloud pavilion would resist the evil Luo army alone. Of course, no matter which one it was, the encampment would not belong to Zhenling's sect in the end. "He's here." Lu Ping still had a smile on his face, but no one could understand the words that came out of his mouth. "What do you mean by coming? Brat, what do you mean by that? If you can't make the decision, call a few old fellows over." Han Huia was more anxious than the Yun nation's Laozu. After all, his junior brother was still in the enemy's hands. If Zhenling couldn't hold on, Hua Win would also die. Lu Ping chuckled but did not answer. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the back of Zhenling's camp. Han Huia and Chu Yun Laozu seemed to have sensed something, and their expressions changed. They also looked in the direction that Lu Ping had turned his head. However, Tianshan Laozu was a little slower. When he turned around with some suspicion, a few firefly-like conveyance lights had already appeared on the horizon. "Kid, are you the one who called for help?" Lu Ping smiled without saying a word, but Han Huia said fiercely, "I want to see what kind of person you called. Who dares to save you in front of the old man?" As soon as Han Huia finished speaking, a loud laugh was heard from the horizon. "Brother Lu, it's been decades since we last met in Tianxian City. I wonder if Brother Lu still remembers us brothers?" Lu Ping hurriedly went forward and smiled. "Brother Yun, you're treating me like an outsider. Hey, Brother Xiaohou, you're here too. Apologies for not coming out to greet you. Please come in." The person who came was Yun Jian, a 3rd-generation practitioner from the Tianxian sect who had survived the 3 rushing thunder swords. Back then, when Lei Jian and Lei Jian died tragically, Lu Ping only had time to save Yun Jian. Now, his cultivation had advanced to the Dharma stage. The other practitioner with a long sword on his back was also an acquaintance of Lu Ping. He was the 4th direct disciple of the Tianxian sect, the storm swordsman, Xiahou Wusheng. He was also at the mid-Dharma stage now. Xiahou Wusheng was not good with words, so he only nodded at Lu Ping and said, "I heard that Mara's army was attacking. Fortunately, I didn't arrive too late." Lu Ping cupped his hands in gratitude and said, "Thank you." Yun Jian said from the side, "Brother Lu, you're treating me like an outsider. If it weren't for your help back then, we wouldn't be alive." Lu Ping hurriedly declined, but Yun Jian seemed to have suddenly discovered something new. He looked at Han Huia, who was hovering in the air, and said in surprise, "Oh, if it isn't Han Huia, Senior Han. Why are you standing here? Could it be that you want to help Brother Lu's sect?" Even a fool could tell that Lu Ping and Lao Zu of Tianshan were confronting Han Huia and Lao Zu of the Chu Yun sect. Yun Jian's words were just to annoy Han Huia. Even though Han Huia was a great practitioner and Yun Jian was only a third-generation direct disciple of the Tianshan sect, these two sects were already mortal enemies. Under the current circumstances, Han Huia would definitely not dare to provoke the Tianshan sect when the battle with Mara was about to break out. What's more, Elder Seven Fan was one of the initiators of the attack on the 9 Xian Tower. Now that he was on good terms with Xiao Baiyu and the others, Han Huia naturally did not want to offend them. Yun Jian had also found out about this, which was why he dared to provoke a great adept of the late Dharma stage. Han Huia was furious, but under the circumstances where he could not fight, he would not give up his status and argue with a third-generation disciple. He could only vent his anger through his nose. Although the current strength of the Jinling station was not weak, Xiahou Wushang was no weaker than Lao Zu of Tianshan, and Yun Jian's strength was comparable to that of Lu Tianyuan and Tian Tian. The arrival of these two people could be regarded as strong reinforcements for Jinling, so everyone in Jinling was naturally overjoyed. The most important thing was that although their arrival was nominally due to Lu Ping's life-saving grace, who could ignore the Tianxian sect behind them? Whether it was the Tianxian sect or the Feiyun Pavilion, when it came to the strength of their respective sects, they were undoubtedly inferior to the Tianxian sect. Therefore, when he saw Yun Jian and Xiahou Wushang rushing over to support them, Han Huia did not feel anything, but Lao Zu of the Chu Yun sect, who was beside him, seemed to be a little uneasy. Although the Feiyun Pavilion was also a well-known large sect in the cultivation world of the central region, its strength was only comparable to the Tianxian sect. Compared to the Tianxian sect, it was undoubtedly much weaker. However, after welcoming Yun Jian and Xiahou Wushang into the station, Lu Ping did not return to the 5 elements formation. Instead, he and Lao Zu of Tianshan continued to hover in the air, facing the direction from which Yun Jian and Xiahou Wushang had come. Could it be that someone else was coming? Chu Yun Lao Zu could not help but feel a jolt in his heart. Indeed, what he feared had come. Another 2 rays of light broke through the air. Even Han Huia felt that something was wrong at this time, and his expression began to change. "Are you the North Sea Water Sword Celestial Lu Tianping, who has recently become famous in the central region?" A soft voice came from the air, and Lu Ping was a little stunned for a moment. Obviously, this voice surprised Lu Ping for a moment. On the other hand, Lao Zu of Tianshan thought of something. Seeing the shock on Lu Ping's face, he hurriedly said, "Are you a fellow from the Tianxian sect? Jinling Tianshan and martial nephew Lu Tianping greet you." Lu Ping, who was at the side, saw Lu Tianyuan hurriedly flying over from the encampment and immediately understood what was going on. An expression of amusement flashed across his face, but he immediately put on a smile and said, "So it's a senior from the Heavenly Moon sect. I am Lu Tianping, sorry for not going out to meet you." 2 women dressed in palace clothes descended and stopped in front of Lu Ping and Lao Zu of Tianshan. One of the female practitioners was older, and her cultivation was already in the middle Dharma stage. She had a smile on her face, but her eyes were cold. Obviously, she was a proud person. Lu Ping could even feel an unapproachable aura from her body, especially when she looked at Lu Tianyuan, who was flying over from the side. There was even some displeasure in her gaze. However, the person who spoke earlier was not her. Instead, it was the younger-looking female cultivator beside her. Although this female cultivator could not be considered a beauty, she was gentle and delicate. Her cultivation was also in the middle Dharma stage. From Lu Ping's point of view, if these 2 were the 3rd-generation cultivators of the Heavenly Moon sect, then they would definitely be among the top direct disciples. The 2 female practitioners bowed to Lao Zu of Tianshan and greeted Lu Ping. As expected, they were the 3rd-generation disciples of the Tianxian sect. At this time, Lu Tianyuan also hurriedly rushed over. Seeing the other female practitioner beside the gentle female practitioner, he was slightly stunned, and an uneasy expression flashed across his face. Only then did he say, "Senior Sister Chan Yu, Junior Sister Chan Xiang, I didn't think that the two of you would also come." Lu Ping saw that Lu Tianyuan's expression was slightly awkward when he arrived, and that Junior Sister Chan Xiang's face was also red. It was obvious that the "didn't think" that Lu Tianyuan said was only directed at the slightly older Senior Sister Chan Yu. He could not help but find it somewhat funny. As expected, that Senior Sister Chan Yu said coldly, "I only came under orders. You probably already knew that Junior Sister Chan Xiang could come, so there is no need to pretend to be so fake." This sentence made Lu Tianyuan feel very awkward. Seeing this, Lu Ping, who was at the side, hurriedly said, "The arrival of these two senior sisters is undoubtedly a timely help. Senior Brother Tianyuan, why don't you quickly invite these two senior sisters into the station to rest for a while?" Lu Tianyuan patted his head as if he suddenly realized something, and hurriedly said, "Quickly invite them in, quickly invite them in." The three of them returned to the station together. Lu Ping smiled at Lao Zu of Tanshan, who was at the side, and said, "I have to congratulate Marshal Uncle." However, Lao Zu of Tianshan did not seem very happy, and instead said, "Everything should go with the flow. Some things cannot be forced." Han Huia, who was at the side, laughed coldly and said, "Not bad, you even managed to seduce the for beauties of heavenly moon. This disciple of your sect is very good at living off women." Anyone could see that there was something fishy going on between that Junior Sister Chan Xiang of the Heavenly Moon sect and Lu Tianyuan. However, the difference between the two of them was too obvious. Whether it was in terms of cultivation or status, Lu Tianyuan could not compare with that Junior Sister Chan Xiang. Previously, Lao Zu of Tianshan did not seem very happy about this, and it was likely that he had also thought of this. However, Lu Ping was not worried. Lu Tianyuan's natural endowments were not bad, and he was also someone who was willing to improve. Moreover, he had previously refined the Dharma soul left behind by Tiankong Laozu. Advancing to the mid-Dharma stage was already a sure thing, and there was a high possibility that he could even advance to the late Dharma stage and become a great adept in the future. As for the status of the two of them, it was not that they could not make up for it. Now that Jinling had taken the last step to enter a large sect, he was only lacking one late Dharma adept. Lu Ping did not take Han Huia's sarcasm to heart, but Chu Yun Laozu, who was at the side, remained silent this time. This was because he saw that Lu Ping and Laozu of Tianshan were still hovering in the air outside the station. Did this not mean that reinforcements had arrived for Jinling? Chu Yun Laozu seemed to vaguely feel that this time, the Feiyun Pavilion was going to be humiliated together with the Taishen sect. As expected, not long after the two direct disciples of the Heavenly Moon sect arrived, several streaks of light once again appeared in the sky. A loud laugh once again rang out in the air. "Brother Lu, have we come too late?" Lu Ping smiled slightly and said, "You're not late, you're just in time." The beams of light disappeared, and Xie Tianyang, Sang Yu, Su Jin, as well as Qing Hu, Qing Lang, and Qing Hu appeared at the same time. This time, Han Huia and the two Laozu of the Chu Yun were not just shocked, but their stomachs were spinning. When Lu Ping saw Su Jin, he hurriedly said, "I didn't expect brothers Su to come too." Su Jin smiled and said, "It's boring staying in the sect station. I heard from Sixth Brother that Brother Lu is going to have a good show here, so I specially came over to see what is going on. I hope Brother Lu and the elders of your sect will not blame me for being rude." Lao Zu of Tanshan smiled at the side and said, "This time, the matter of our sect has troubled all of you. Tianshan thanks all of you for your help." Su Jin, Xie Tianyang, and Sang Yu repeatedly said that they did not dare. At this moment, a woman flashed out from behind Sang Yu and said with a charming smile, "Brother Lu, do you still remember me?" Lu Ping was slightly stunned. When he saw Sang Yu's slightly unnatural expression, he immediately remembered the female cultivator of the Spirit Beast sect who had taken a fancy to Lu Shaohai at the river source. He smiled and said, "Isn't this Miss Wu Yinglan? I didn't expect you to also come to help this time. I am very grateful." Previously, Lu Ping had only sent Qing Hu and the other two to ask for help from Xie Tianyang and Sang Yu. He did not expect that the Heavenly Moon sect and the Tianxian sect would also send their disciples over. However, this was not a bad thing. At least this time, with the strength of Jinling and the reinforcements from Mara's counterattack, their chances of not losing the station were greatly increased. Su Jin, Xie Tianyang, and Sang Yu were all outstanding practitioners of the third generation. They were also the heirs of the Ziyang Palace and the Empyrean walkers of the Spirit Beast sect. They were all prominent figures in the world of cultivation. Although Wu Yinglan's cultivation was slightly lower, she was also at the early Dharma stage. Furthermore, she was the only daughter of the great practitioner of the Spirit Beast sect, Wu Tianxing, the Empyrean walker of the previous generation, Wu Yinglan, so her status was also extraordinary. In addition, Qinghu and the other two were also experts among the practitioners of the same level. This time, it could be said that Junling's ability to resist Mara's counterattack had greatly increased. As everyone exchanged greetings, Xie Tianyang saw Han Huia and Chu Yun Laozu, who looked a little uneasy. These two were prominent figures in the world of cultivation, so Xie Tianyang and the others naturally recognized them. Are Senior Han and Senior Chu Yun also here to help Brother Lu's sect this time? With the help of these two seniors, I think our chances of defending this time will be much higher. Whether Xie Tianyang really did not know the inside story or was doing it on purpose, his words made the two of them feel extremely awkward. Chu Yun Laozu, who was at the side, did not even think about it. He hurriedly laughed and said, "The old man is just passing by." He was passing by and revealed to Junling the number and scale of Mara's army's counterattack. Other than that, there is nothing else. With the help of the rising stars of the cultivation world, I think there is no need for the old man to meddle. The old man still has other matters to attend to, so he has to leave. Yes, he's leaving. Chu Yun Laozu's hurried departure caught Han Huia off guard. However, his junior brother was still in the hands of the other party. In front of these direct disciples of the Holy Land, Han Huia did not have the courage to threaten Jinling. He could only hover in the air, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. He felt very awkward. Chu Yun Laozu's hurried departure made Xie Tianyang and the others a little puzzled. Seeing the suspicious gazes of Xie Tianyang and the others, Lu Ping smiled and said, "This is not the place to talk. Let's go to the station and rest for a while. I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle later, and I will need your help then." Sang Yu was from the Spirit Beast Taming sect and was also an Empyrean walker. The cultivators of the Spirit Beast Taming sect liked to hide their identities and travel around the world, so they knew a lot about the secrets of the cultivation world. When she saw Han Huia and Chu Yun Laozu hovering outside Jinling's station, she seemed to have guessed something. After hearing what Lu Ping said, she smiled and said, "This time, we came for this fierce battle. It's rare for Brother Lu to personally ask for help, so we naturally have to do you a favor." Su Jin was also a Linglong person. He laughed and said, that's right. This is a rare opportunity. With Brother Lu's achievements in the future, I'm afraid you won't give anyone the chance to owe you a favor anymore." When Han Huia saw the direct disciples of the Purple Sun Palace, Spirit Beast Taming sect, Heavenly Moon sect, and Heavenly Xian sect coming to help one after another, he naturally knew that all his plans had failed today. At this time, he finally made up his mind to leave. However, he was still one step behind Chu Yun Laozu. Just when Lu Ping welcomed the various reinforcements into the station and looked at Han Huia with a smile, Han Huia turned around to leave. Unexpectedly, the space around him suddenly became sticky, and a voice sounded in his ear, asking, "Where are you going?" Han Huia was shocked, and the qi all over his body shook in an attempt to break free from the shackles. Unexpectedly, it was better if he didn't move, but once he moved, the shackles around his body became even tighter. This made Han Huia even more shocked. Could it be that there was an unknown master in Jinling? After all, to be able to imprison a great cultivator like him without him knowing was not something that an ordinary person could do. An old man holding a green jade flute suddenly appeared beside Han Huia. Lu Ping, who was previously smiling, hurriedly went forward to greet him and said, "I didn't expect you to come as well." The old man smiled and said, "The old man's injuries have not yet healed. You promised before that if the old man wants to recover, This matter naturally falls on you, kid. Han Hui's heart had long sunk to the bottom. The person who came was none other than one of the 13 pure young Laozu who had called for the world of cultivation to gather at the 9 profound tower to besiege Mara's army. He was Lin Yu Laozu, who represented the forces of the Central Plains individual cultivators. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Don't worry, ancestor. I've already gathered most of the spirit herbs required to concoct the pure yang stasis removal pellet. I'm just waiting for ancestor's arrival and I can start concocting the pellet." Lin Yu Laozu smiled and said, "Rest assured, old man. If before, old man still had some doubts, but this time I heard from fellow Taoist Shao about your reputation in the overseas cultivation world. I didn't expect that your alchemy skills have already reached such a level. You can actually be mentioned in the same breath as the Fire Phoenix clan's alchemy grandmaster, Yan Wujiu, who has a great reputation in the Central Plains cultivation world." Lu Ping said modestly, "Junior does not have any virtue or ability to be mentioned in the same breath as Senior Yan." Lin Yu Laozu did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he turned to look at Han Hui, who had been imprisoned by him, and said, "This time, Mara's counterattack is no small matter. The old man is injured and can't do much. Since you've come, you should also contribute. After all, with a great cultivator like you overseeing this battle, the weight is very different." Han Hui Laozu wanted to cry but had no tears. Chapter 1273. This time, Mara's counterattack is no small matter. It is a pity that the old man is injured and unable to intervene. Since you are here, you should help out. It is better than giving the Taishan sect the reputation of not helping a dying sect. Lin Yu Laozu's words made Han Hui want to cry, but he had no tears. This time, the Taishan sect could be considered to have suffered a double loss. His own brother was still in the hands of others, and this time, he had fallen into the hands of Lin Yu Laozu and was forced to work for Jinling. At that time, the Taishan sect would definitely become the laughingstock of the entire cultivation world. Unfortunately, when people under the eaves, they had to bow their heads. Lin Yu Laozu's level of practice was not considered powerful among the pure Yang Laozu, but the secret techniques that he had inherited from the ancient times were not to be taken lightly. The foundation of this set of inheritance was completely based on the practitioner's divine will, and half of Lin Yu Laozu's strength was in this. Unfortunately, when Lin Yu Laozu received this set of inheritance, he was already a Dharma adept. His divine will was almost fixed, and it was extremely difficult to improve on the original foundation. Even so, Lin Yu Laozu had relied on this set of secret techniques to finally push his level of practice to the pure Yang stage. Now, although Lin Yu Laozu could not use this set of secret techniques to deal with pure Yang adepts of the same level, it would not be difficult to deal with a great adept of the late Dharma stage. At the same time that Han Hui was imprisoned, Lin Yu Laozu used a secret technique to seal his divine will, but did not use any of his inner yuan. However, when Han Hui was awake, he was horrified to find that he could not control his own body at all, and a strange but unparalleled power of divine will had directly invaded his core space, subduing his Dharma power in the blink of an eye. In an instant, Han Hui Laozu's physical body, cultivation, and magic had been used by Lin Yu Laozu, and Han Hui was now just a puppet in Lin Yu Laozu's hands. What a marvelous skill! Lu Ping saw that Han Hui, a great adept, was like a puppet following Lin Yu Laozu's commands. While he was praising Han Hui, he felt a chill run down his spine. Lin Yu Laozu smiled slightly and said, "This time I just caught him off guard. It is not easy to control a great adept, and this kind of opportunity is not common. With the old man's level of practice, the most he can control is a mid-Dharma adept, but what use is a mid-Dharma puppet to the old man?" However, Lu Ping didn't think much of it. The secret technique was clearly extraordinary, and the heritage Lin Yu obtained in the past wasn't simple at all. Lin Yu Laozu saw Lu Ping's drooling expression. Laozu smiled slightly and said, "What do you think? Do you want to learn it?" Lu Ping came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. "It would be a lie to say that I don't want to learn such a secret technique." Lin Yu Laozu laughed loudly and said, "You saved the old man's life, and you owe him a great favor for refining the pure yang blood stasis removal elixir. What harm is there in giving this ancient technique to you? Lu Ping's eyes lit up, but he was still a little hesitant. Really? Lin Yu Laozu sighed and said, this inheritance was the cause of the Yiyun sect's destruction, but it is not the Yiyun sect's own inheritance. The old man did not violate the sect's rule of not divulging the sect's inheritance to you. Speaking of which, from the time the seventh patriarch opened the sky until 10,000 years ago, the cultivation world mostly discussed and learned from each other. Even exchanging inheritances was not uncommon. Therefore, there were often amazing figures among the loose cultivators. However, in the past 10,000 years, the sects have become more and more powerful. They have collected the world's inheritances for their own use. Now that the power structure of the cultivation world has been set, the sects have become more and more powerful, while the loose cultivators' situation has become more and more difficult. No matter what, this inheritance cannot be passed down among the loose cultivators. And the reason why I gave it to you was not because the old man felt like it, but because this inheritance is closely related to the practitioner's divine will. The stronger the divine will, the more powerful the inheritance. It's a pity that the old man's divine will had already been fixed. Otherwise, he might not be weaker than those pure yang practitioners from the Holy Lands. As for your divine will, it is extremely unique. You are only at the mid-dharma stage, but your divine will is second only to that of a pure yang adept. You are the perfect candidate to inherit this ancient secret technique. Only such a person would be able to unleash the true power of this ancient technique. When Lu Ping saw that Lin Yu Laozu was determined to pass this inheritance to him, he said, I wonder what this secret technique is called. Does Elder need me to do anything? Lin Yu Laozu shook his head and said, this inheritance is actually just a set of 3 great secret techniques. These 3 great secret techniques are called Shadow Flow, Sealing Image, and Stealing Aura. The 3 combine to form the great secret technique, Slaying Spirit. But those who are hit by it are rarely able to escape from it so quickly. It's a pity that when masters fight, they are always on guard against each other. It's not easy for this secret technique to be effective. But once it is effective, it will definitely be a fatal blow. Hearing this, Lu Ping nodded. If this kind of heaven-defying secret technique could be used at will, it would not be called heaven-defying. But even so, once it was successfully cultivated, it would definitely be a killer move. At this time, Lu Ping saw Lin Yu Laozu crooked his finger, and Han Huia started walking towards the two of them. However, Lu Ping noticed that at this time, Han Huia's gaze seemed to be a little more lively, and his body seemed to be trying very hard to escape from something. It was just that it did not work, and he continued walking towards the two of them. Lin Yu Laozu explained, this secret technique only seals the divine will and essential yuan of a cultivator, but it does no harm to the cultivator himself. Therefore, it is very easy for someone to escape from the state of being cast. At this time, the caster needs to continuously increase the power of the seal. After a pause, Lin Yu Laozu continued, back then, this also had something to do with the caster's own level of attainment. With the old man's divine will, it was only a matter of time before he was able to trap a great cultivator. If it was a mid-dharma adept, perhaps the old man would not have needed to care about him for an entire day. When he saw Han Huia walk over, Ancestor Lin Yu tapped the center of Han Huia's forehead, and then he slapped his palm down towards Han Huia's chest. Go! The struggle of the original consciousness that had emerged from Han Huia's physical body was once again suppressed by Lin Yu Laozu. Although he looked like an ordinary person, his entire person felt like he had killed a portion of spiritual qi. Outside the station, under the leadership of a few blood Mara, the Mara army had already begun to launch a probing attack on Jinling. However, with the protection of the defensive formation and the 3 talents and 5 elements formation, the disciples of Jinling did not need to rely on the strength of reinforcements to repel the invading Mara army. They also annihilated nearly 100 big and small Mara in one fell swoop, and a blood Shura was also seriously injured. Currently, the 2 great practitioners, Lin Yu Laozu and the controlled Han Huia, were in charge of Jinling's station. However, Lin Yu Laozu was injured, and unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not intervene. At this time, this pure yang was here to deter the practitioners from the various sects who wanted to take advantage of the situation. The mid-Dharma adepts were Tian Fan, Tian Shui, Tian Shan, Lu Ping, Chan Yu, Chan Xiang, Xiahou Wushang, Sang Yu, Su Jin, Xie Tianyang, and Qing Hu, and the early Dharma adepts were Lu Tianyuan, Tian Tian, Ji Tianxian, Li Tianru, Yun Jian, Wu Yinglan, Qing Lang, and Qing Hu. Although the strength of Jinling's side might be slightly inferior to that of Mara's army, with the protection of the station's great array, it was not impossible for them to block the attack of Mara's army. It was a pity that Huo Wuyin's base had been severely injured and his cultivation sealed after he had been captured by Lu Ping. Otherwise, if he had been handed over to Lin Yu Laozu to use the ancient secret technique, perhaps Jinling would have gained another great help in the battle. This time, the siege of Mara's army by the various sects concerned the opening of the Seventh Patriarch's Way altar and several secret realms. Therefore, after the various sects had obtained the approval of the 13 pure Yang Laozu, they had distributed the photographic stones to every disciple who had participated in the battle. The records of the number of enemies killed by each disciple would be compiled and tabulated. This would serve as a reference for the allocation of the quota for the various sects to enter the secret realms after the battle. Although Jinling was the first to bear the brunt of the counterattack of Mara's army, it had to be said that this was an excellent opportunity to increase Jinling's military achievements. Of course, the prerequisite was that they naturally had to block the attack of Mara's army. In fact, as long as Jinling can display the strength to completely block the counterattack of Mara's army, then this Mara's army will inevitably face a siege from the various sects cultivators. Lin Yu Laozu analyzed the pros and cons of this battle to the crowd and said confidently. Tian Shan Laozu agreed. In other words, the various sects are now observing our sect's strength from the sidelines. Once our sect withstands Mara's counterattack, then the various sects will inevitably rush forward to snatch the military achievements. Ji Tianxian scolded. These Central Plains sects are so shameless. We took the risk to block Mara's army, but they want to pick up the fruits of our labor from the sidelines. Tian Fan Laozu said helplessly, there's nothing we can do about it. They will come under the banner of rescuing our sect and be bold and confident. In reality, they will indeed snatch a lot of our sect's military achievements, but it is also a fact that they can reduce the burden and casualties of our disciples. Ji Tianxian was still indignant. He said in a low voice, this feeling of being taken advantage of is really unpleasant. At the side, Lu Ping said with a smile, no matter what, we have started the first battle to encircle and annihilate Mara. In the future, we will have a firm foothold in the Central Plains. Moreover, encircling and annihilating Mara will not be decided in a single battle. This is a long and drawn-out battle. Today, others have come to our encampment to take advantage of us. In the future, when we run to their doorstep and kill Mara, they naturally won't be able to say anything. There will be plenty of opportunities. As expected of Ji Tianxuan's good friend, Lu Ping was able to see through his thoughts with just a few words. As soon as he said this, Ji Tianxian was already chuckling to himself, as if he had already made up his mind to do so. As they spoke, the second attack of Mara's army had already arrived. Under the lead of the 5 Jade Mara, over 1,000 Mara's army charged towards the encampment once more. The battle had escalated. Chapter 1274. Seeing Mara's army charge over again, Lu Ping was about to make a move, but unexpectedly he was blocked by his two good friends, Sang Yu and Xie Tianyang. Xie Tianyang said, I heard that you guys already had a battle outside the Qingming River. Leave it to us this time. It'll be good for you, the number one of the 3rd generation, to see our cultivation achievements over the years. This number one of the 3rd generation title is not that easy to obtain. Sang Yu also laughed. That's right, we are very unconvinced. Coincidentally, we have the reflection stone to accumulate battle merits, so let's compete fairly. Since Brother Lu has already made a move, then don't make a move again this time. If you are interested in competing, then everyone can make a move. The two echoed each other, but the target of their provocation was naturally not the Jinling cultivators. Speaking of the Jinling, only Lu Ping could be taken seriously by these Holy Land sections. The two of them were naturally targeting the Sky Profound sect's Wind and Cloud swordsman Xiahou Wushang, as well as the Heavenly Moon sect's Chan Yu and Chan Xiang. Lu Ping knew the thoughts of his two good friends and was moved. However, he also knew that since things had reached this point, Lu Ping naturally couldn't refute the thoughts of his two good friends. In any case, the one who benefited was Jinling. They were all the best of the third-generation direct disciples of their respective sects, so naturally, they were all proud and arrogant. Xiahou Wushang did not speak, but the long sword on his back trembled. The two senior and junior sisters of the Heavenly Moon sect giggled, and the aura around their bodies did not seem to be at a disadvantage in the slightest. To the side, Su Jin had long since become impatient and said hurriedly, "Let's go, their core forging cultivators have already fought. What are we still doing here? There are only 5 Jade Mara coming up this time, whoever snatches them gets it." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Jin had already arrived outside of the encampment's great formation. His body was instantly covered by a layer of formation barrier. Su Jin let out a sound of surprise and shouted, "What a good formation!" Finished speaking, the ice brocade sword trembled and charged into the midst of Mara's army. Immediately, the heads of 2 great Azuras flew high into the air. Chan Yu of the Heavenly Moon sect snorted delicately and said, making a move against 2 great Azuras, "What's so great about being a direct disciple of a Holy Land? It's not like it will be counted as battle achievements." When she spoke up to hear, Chan Yu's voice stopped because she saw Su Jin turn around and launch a surprise attack after he killed 2 great Azuras with his sword, and he caught a blood Azura off guard, causing one of its arms to fly into the sky. Killing a blood Shura would be counted as a battle achievement. Chan Yu didn't have time to say anything else. She called out to her junior sister Chan Xiang beside her, and the two of them leaped out of the station's defensive formation as well, charging towards Mara's army. After these 2 seniors and junior sister charged out, Lu Tianyuan hesitated for a moment, then followed them out of the encampment. Seeing this, Qing Hu and the other 2 naturally did not show any weakness. Although Qing Hu was a non-affiliated practitioner, she was not completely without a foundation. Otherwise, her level of practice would not have been able to reach the mid-Dharma stage. Seeing that Xie Tianyang and the others had about 3 generations of mid-Dharma adepts, she naturally had to go out and compete with them. Xie Tianyang winked at Lu Ping then said, let's go, let's go. They've already made the first move, we can't fall behind anymore." Sang Yu was about to follow, but unexpectedly, Wu Yan also wanted to go out. Sang Yu's expression immediately darkened. Although Wu Yinglan was also an early Dharma adept, in Sang Yu's eyes, she was the weakest. Now that this lady was going out, he would definitely follow by her side to ensure her safety. If he lost even a hair on her head, he would be hunted down by Wu Tianxing and Lao Zu. Under such circumstances, how would he have the energy to fight others? Xie Tianyang was naturally gloating from the side. Without waiting for Sang Yu to react, he had already charged out of the encampment. Sang Yu had no choice but to team up with Wu Yinglan and leave the encampment. Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian continued to control the 3 talents and 5 elements formation, firmly guarding the encampment. When Mara's army surged forward, Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian reached out their hands, and 2 spiritual-level bronze bells flew out of the encampment. Clang, clang. 2 crisp sounds rang out, and the hundreds of large and small Mara flying at the front immediately swayed, causing the entire attacking Mara army to be thrown into chaos. Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian took the opportunity to command the formation to charge out of the encampment, killing as many of the large and small Mara that were attacking the protective walls of the encampment as possible. Then, when Mara's army reacted again, they did not linger and immediately retreated into the encampment, relying on the protective walls of the encampment to resist the tide-like attacks of Mara's army. These 2 bronze bells were replicas of the 2 sea bells that Jinling had successfully replicated over the years, according to the method provided by Lu Ping. However, the concentrated spiritual materials needed to make this kind of magic treasure were too rare. Even though Jinling had occupied the majority of the few mineral veins discovered in the North Sea over the years, It was already commendable to upgrade these two replicas to the level of spiritual level magic treasures. In addition, Lu Ping also had a replica of the sea bell that had reached the level of a spiritual level magic treasure. In all of Jinling, there were only these three. It was a pity that Xiang Lu Laozu did not come to the Central Plains with them this time. Otherwise, with the help of the Real Sea Bell, Jinling's achievements in encircling and suppressing Mara would be even more glorious. However, the Sea Bell, a spiritual treasure, had too many implications. If it was exposed in the Central Plains, it was unknown whether Jinling could keep this spiritual treasure. Just in case, Xiang Lu Laozu did not bring the Sea Bell to the Central Plains this time. Even so, the replica of the Sea Bell still attracted the attention of Lin Yu Laozu. This magic treasure copper bell is interesting. It seems to have some special restraints on Mara. It's a pity that its power is a little lacking and its grade is too far off. Otherwise, it would be a treasure that can restrain Mara. Lin Yu Laozu saw through the nature of these two copper bells with a glance. He pondered for a moment and said, "These two magic treasures must not have been easy for you to obtain. However, it's best to upgrade them, but don't use them too much in front of others. Otherwise, it'll be bad if other sects covet them." Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, "Of course I want to upgrade the quality of these two magic treasures. However, the spiritual materials needed to refine these two magic treasures are too rare, and the difficulty of refining them is far higher than magic treasures of the same grade. The sect I'm in has used all its resources to gather spiritual materials, and two master refiners have meticulously refined them. So far, I've only refined these two magic treasures. Moreover, after promoting their quality to the spiritual level, I don't have the strength to go any further." Lin Yu Laozu looked at the two magic treasures in surprise and said, "It's really that difficult. Tell me what spiritual materials are missing. Let's see if the old man can help." Although Lin Yu Laozu was an independent cultivator, he was a pure Yang Laozu after all. His accumulation for more than 1,000 years was naturally extraordinary. It was normal for him to have a few kinds of precious spiritual materials in his hands. Hearing this, Lu Ping was also a little moved. He immediately reported the precious spiritual materials needed to refine the vast sea bell. Earth fire pure gold, heavenly wind iron catkins, formless jade copper, immersed silver essence. There were more than 10 kinds of spiritual materials that were rare in the cultivation world. Lin Yu Laozu could not help but laugh bitterly when he heard this. He said, "Each of these spiritual materials can be said to be treasures of heaven and earth. They are all treasures that can be used to refine spirit treasures. Moreover, they need such a large amount. If these 10 kinds of treasures are taken out, they can be used to upgrade 7 or 8 spirit treasures. But if all of them are gathered on this copper bell, it can only be upgraded to a spiritual treasure?" Lu Ping said helplessly, "That is indeed the case. However, if we can gather all of these spiritual materials, there is only one treasure left to upgrade it to a spirit treasure. As long as we have this treasure, it won't be a problem for this copper bell to be upgraded in the future." Lin Yu Laozu had long been a little discouraged after listening to Lu Ping's introduction. If there were only 1 or 2 kinds of spiritual materials, Lin Yu Laozu could still gather them. If there were more than 10 kinds of spiritual materials, and they were all in such large amounts, he felt that even a sacred ground would be disheartened if they wanted to do it. When he heard Lu Ping say that there was still one treasure missing, he casually asked, "What treasure is it?" "Sound stone." "Sound stone." Lin Yu Laozu seemed to be deep in thought, but Lu Ping's expression changed. Jinling had long grasped the method to refine the vast ocean bell. Although the precious spiritual materials inside were a headache, it was not that they did not exist in the cultivation world. It was just that it was abnormally difficult to gather them. However, this sound stone was something that Jinling had never heard of before. In reality, Lu Ping vaguely seemed to have some impression of this treasure. However, this familiarity came from the impression that Lu Ping had obtained when he absorbed and refined Fei Tian Laozu's pure Yang soul. Fei Tian Laozu's pure Yang soul had been baptized by time for thousands of years, and the spiritual memories inside had already been lost. Although this sound stone sounded familiar, he really did not know what it was. Lu Ping carefully asked, "Senior, do you know what this sound stone is?" Lin Yu Laozu nodded and said, "Sound stone. This item should exist in the 7th Patriarch's Tao altar. It was the treasure that was used to forge the Tao altar when the 7th Patriarch opened the altar to give a lecture." 7th Patriarch's Tao altar? This time, it was Lu Ping's turn to be shocked. That was the place where the 7th Patriarch opened the altar to give a lecture to the cultivators of the world. It was the holy land of this world, and the sound stone actually existed in this place. When the 7th Patriarch opened the altar to give a lecture, his words were simple and profound. Just a few words could make people have an epiphany. Even his tone could give people a shock. However, the 7th Patriarch's power was so great that it was impossible for the people listening to the 7th Patriarch's lecture to comprehend everything. Usually, after listening for a short while, they would be immersed in their own epiphany and unable to extricate themselves. Naturally, no one could listen to the 7th Patriarch's lecture in its entirety. This was also the reason why the 49 true teachings of the 7th Patriarch were passed down to the world. In order to record the 7th Patriarch's lecture in its original form, the cultivators of the world used the sound stone to forge the 7th Patriarch's Tao altar. This sound stone could preserve the original sound of the 7th Patriarch's lecture and continue to echo until now. Although the sound has become fainter and fainter, every time the 7th Patriarch's Tao altar opens, the cultivators who enter will comprehend the sound of the Tao altar, hoping to find one or two of the 7th Patriarch's true voices to increase their cultivation or to comprehend a secret technique. Chapter 1275. In this battle against Mara, the battle credit calculation was extremely strict. Ordinary practitioners would only be able to count the number of Mara kills that were at most one level lower than their level of practice. This meant that for a mid-Dharma adept like Lu Ping, if he wanted to count his battle credit, he had to kill at least a blood Mara. If it was a big Mara that was equivalent to the core forging stage, to a mid-Dharma adept, it would be as easy as chopping vegetables. There was no point in doing so. Of course, for early Dharma adepts like Lu Tianyuan and Ji Tianxian, killing a big Mara that was equivalent to a late core forging stage could also be counted as a battle credit. It was just that compared to killing a blood Mara, the difference was like heaven and earth. However, it was still much higher than a mid-Dharma adept killing a blood Mara. By the same token, if a mid-Dharma adept killed a Jade Mara that was equivalent to a Jade Mara of the same level, the battle credit he would receive would definitely be higher than if a great Dharma adept killed a Jade Mara. All in all, this method of calculating battle credit took into account practitioners of different levels of practice. At the same time, it also took into account the relative difficulty of calculating battle credit. However, Lu Ping did not care too much about Xie Tianyang and the rest's fair challenge. Lu Ping took out his imaging stone and looked at it. Previously, when he was above the Qingming River, he had used the changing seas into mulberry fields because of his sudden enlightenment. In one fell swoop, Lu Ping had killed a Jade Shura, a Jade Demon, 5 Blood Shuras, and 2 Blood Demons. In addition, he had severely injured a Jade Shura and 3 Blood Mara, and killed more than 600 big and small Mara. It was a pity that these achievements did not count towards Lu Ping's battle credit. Even so, with these achievements, Lu Ping did not believe that Xie Tianyang and the rest would be able to catch up to him in this battle. After finding out the whereabouts of the sound stone from Lin Yu Laozu, Lu Ping was even more determined to go to the 7th Patriarch's altar. If he wanted to go there, he had to be among the best in this battle against Mara. At the very least, he had to be among the best among the mid-Dharma adepts. There had been rumors that this battle against Mara would open up the battle credit leaderboard. Lu Ping had just received confirmation from Lin Yu Laozu, and the battle credit leaderboard had already been opened when Mara had attacked Xinling's base. There was no overall leaderboard for the battle credit leaderboard. The battle credit leaderboard was based on the different levels of practice of the adepts, which would result in different points for killing Mara. Therefore, the leaderboard was only based on the different levels of practice of the adepts, and Lu Ping naturally only paid attention to the leaderboard for the mid-Dharma adepts. According to the rules of the battle credit leaderboard, a mid-Dharma adept would naturally not receive any battle credit for killing Mara or Little Mara. However, killing a Blood Shura would be worth 3 points, and a Blood Demon would be worth 5 points. Killing a Jade Shura of the same level would be worth 10 points, and a Jade Demon would be worth 15 points. If one was able to kill an Azura of a higher level, it would directly increase by 20 points. However, if it was a Sky Demon, it would be a whole 30 points. Lu Ping made a rough estimate of the battle above the Qingming River and realized that he had still received 50 points. Although now, because of the 7th Patriarch's altar, Lu Ping now had an additional motivation to fight for battle credits. Due to the previous agreement he had with his companions, Lu Ping could not directly fight. However, the way the battle credit leaderboard was calculated for early Dharma adepts was different. This was because of the huge gap between a Big Mara and a Blood Mara. Although early Dharma adepts could still receive battle credits for killing a Big Mara, which was equivalent to a late core forging adept, regardless of whether it was a Big Shura or a Great Demon, the battle credit would only be 1 point. However, if early Dharma adepts were able to kill a Blood Mara of the same level, the points would become 10 points for a Blood Shura and 15 points for a Blood Demon, which was basically the same as how a mid-Dharma adept would receive points for killing a Blood Shura of the same level. Similarly, when an early Dharma adept killed a Jade Mara of a higher level, they would also receive 20 points and 30 points respectively. As for the higher-level Azuras and Heavenly Demons, although early Dharma adepts basically had no chance of killing these beings, the battle credit leaderboard still listed the reward points for them. That was, if an early Dharma adept killed a Blood Shura 2 levels above him, an Azura would receive 40 points, and a Sky Demon would receive 60 points. The same principle also applied to late Dharma adepts. If Jade Mara died at their hands, they would only receive 30 to 50 points. However, if someone completed a cross-level battle, they would receive 10 or 15 points for the points they earned. In reality, this was also a deliberate move by the 13 pure Yang adepts when they came up with the battle credit leaderboard. The reason was simple, and that was, every time Mara increased his level of practice, the increase in his abilities would often far exceed that of a human adept of the same level of practice. Therefore, the 13 pure Yang adepts did not approve of anyone taking the risk to challenge a strong practitioner like Mara. In reality, this was also a deliberate move by the 13 pure Yang adepts when they came up with the battle credit leaderboard. The reason was simple, and that was, every time Mara increased his level of practice, the degree of his ability would often far exceed that of a human adept who had the same level of practice. These 13 pure Yang adepts did not approve of anyone taking the risk to challenge a strong practitioner like Mara. Among the Mara adepts whose level of practice was comparable to the Dharma adepts, Mara of the same level was often stronger than human adepts because of his spiritual treasure. Those who could fight a Mara of the same level of practice were usually the best of the best among human adepts of the same level of practice. At this time, the battle outside the station was already in full swing. When Lu Ping looked over, he saw that the 3 mid-Dharma adepts, Xiahou Wushang, Chan Yu, and Chan Xiang, were barely able to fight a Jade Shura to a draw. This also showed that the 3 of them were strong among the same level of practice, and they were worthy of being adepts of their respective sections. Compared to the 3 of them, Green Fox was much weaker. She had tried to challenge a Jade Shura on her own, but the Jade Shura had the upper hand. She had no choice but to call for Green Tiger and Green Wolf's help, and only then did she have the upper hand in the battle against the Jade Shura. And Su Jin and Xie Tianyang's abilities were undoubtedly stronger than Xiahou Wushang and the other 2. Even if the 2 of them each dealt with a Jade Shura, they could still do it with ease. And Lu Ping could see that Xie Tianyang's abilities were even slightly stronger than Su Jin's. Sang Yu wholeheartedly wanted to compete with people of the same type, but he now had a grandaunt by his side. Wu Yinglan was only at the early Dharma stage, and her abilities were barely satisfactory, but it was not an easy task for her to take on a Blood Shura alone. Sang Yu could only escort her along the way. However, in this way, he had seized the opportunity to kill a Blood Shura and severely injure a Blood Demon. Compared to the others, he was the first to achieve results. When Lu Ping saw that his side wasn't in a disadvantageous position, he felt relieved. After all, there were still Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu experts on the battlefield. When the two of them worked together, they were equivalent to the existence of a grand cultivator. As long as Mara's army didn't send out any Azuras, Mara's army wouldn't have any problems charging forward. Lu Ping simply ran to the array disk of the 5 elements formation to talk to the Black Fox. When the Black Fox saw Lu Ping, she was very surprised. "Why are you here? Aren't you going to fight?" Lu Ping chuckled and told her about the arranged battle, then asked, "How is it? How's the control of the 5 elements formation?" The Black Fox Immortal rolled her eyes at him and said, "The Wuxing School's formation detailed explanation is a formation passed down from Wuxing School for tens of thousands of years. It's extensive and profound. How can it be so easy to control? The 5 elements formation in the encampment this time is just borrowing the effect of the spiritual treasure, the 5 elements ring, to simplify the construction of many originally complicated and profound formations without weakening the formation's power. Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't take such a short time to set up such a formation." As the two of them spoke, they entered the location of the 5 elements formation. On the formation disk, which had a circumference of 30 feet, there were dozens of top-grade spirit stones embedded in it, and in the center of the formation disk was the 5 elements ring, which was shining with a 5-colored brilliance. Lu Ping looked at the formation disk, where the formation masters of his sect would replace the top-grade spirit stones that had exhausted their spiritual qi from time to time. He could not help but ask, "The consumption of top-grade spirit stones is so fast. Do the sect have enough spirit stones?" The Black Fox said, "Before setting up the formation, Martial Granduncle Tian Shui gave me 300 top-grade spirit stones. It took me 50 to set up the formation and maintain its operation. But now that the battle is going on, the consumption of spirit stones will increase. But 300 top-grade spirit stones are enough to last for a while." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Although there are a few places that are not used for gathering spirit, they are not spiritual veins. Otherwise, we can greatly reduce the consumption of spirit stones." The Black Fox also said, "There is nothing we can do about it. Our sect's foundation is not as good as those famous sections. It is rare to be able to take out 300 top-grade spirit stones in one go. But who would have thought that Mara's counterattack would be so fast, and he is even coming for our sect?" Lu Ping said, "I have a few spiritual gathering pearls with me, but it is too late to use them to cultivate spiritual veins. Now, the fastest way is to find 1 or 2 spiritual veins and bring them to the station. Or we can just separate a water vein from the Qingming River." "Separate water vein?" The Black Fox was a little surprised and said, "This is a secret technique that only a few sacred lands and famous sects can master. How can we do it?" Lu Ping lowered his head and muttered to himself. He took out a storage bag and said, "There are 100 top-grade spirit stones in here. Just in case." The Black Fox was a little unhappy and said, "This is a matter for the whole sect. How can you use your own things?" Lu Ping smiled and said, "This is not for the sect, but for you. You can use it as you see fit." At this time, the Black Fox realized the number of 100 top-grade spirit stones. Although she knew that her man was powerful, he could easily take out 100 top-grade spirit stones. She thought that even celestial phenomenon Laozu would not be able to do it so easily. She could not help but ask, "Where did you get so many top-grade spirit stones? Do you have enough for yourself? Why don't you just leave 50 and take the rest for yourself?" Lu Ping wanted to show his wealth to the Black Fox, but he was afraid that he would scare her, so he just smiled and said, "You can take it. I don't lack these." After saying that, Lu Ping stretched out his hand and threw the Linglong wine cauldron onto the 5-element ring in the center of the formation plate. Chapter 1276. Lu Ping had killed the water ape spirit of the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth in the branch of the Qingming River at the foot of Luo Xian Mountain. The Linglong wine cauldron had benefited a lot from it. Although Lu Ping had been suppressing her from summoning the second thunder tribulation, the Linglong wine cauldron had become more useful. Although the 5-element ring could maximize the circulation of the spiritual power stimulated by the spirit stone, the Linglong wine cauldron would undoubtedly increase the efficiency of the big formation. Moreover, the Linglong wine cauldron was a treasure that could be used to control the earth veins and gather spiritual qi. Using it to suppress the big formation, I could gather as much spiritual qi as possible for one's own use. However, Lu Ping was thinking about how to separate a water vein from the Qingming River for his own use. Zhenling Station was close to the Qingming River. If he could draw out a branch of the water vein, even if it was only a small one, it could save a lot of resources for Zhenling's practice. However, since ancient times, the secret technique of drawing water veins had only been in the hands of a few sanctums and famous sects, and it was an existence that was not passed down. Moreover, it was not a simple matter to use it. One only had to look at the effort that the 5-element sect had put into stealing the Nether River's veins to know. Lu Ping hesitated to ask Lin Yu Laozu for advice again. It was just that Lin Yu Laozu had given him the inheritance of the supreme magical power, the rare spiritual materials, and the secrets about the 7th Patriarch's Taoist altar. Lu Ping always felt that there was a scheme behind Lin Yu Laozu's generosity. Although Lu Ping did not think that Lin Yu Laozu's scheme could bring any harm to Zhenling, this kind of favors made Lu Ping somewhat flinch. Moreover, Lin Yu Laozu himself might not know the secret method of drawing out the water vein. Actually, it's not too difficult to separate a branch from the Qingming River. Lu Ping was taken aback. Only then did he smack his head as he recalled that there was an existence in the core space that could be said to have been born in the hands of Taoist Chan ever since he passed the 3rd lightning tribulation at the foot of Luo Xan Mountain and became a pure yang spiritual treasure. Perhaps because he had to consume the gains from the advancement, the mantis had been hiding in the scissors and did not show itself. For a moment, Lu Ping had forgotten about the biggest trump card in his hand. The 2 halves of the spiritual treasure was not just a water-dissolving talisman. Back then, the Wuxing school had tried every means to find it, in order to make a cut in the water vein of the Qingming River so that they could separate a water vein. It was precisely because they failed to find it in the end that the Wuxing school had to plan for hundreds of years and use other secret techniques to successfully draw out a water vein from the Qingming River. Now that the spiritual treasure had been cut in half, although it had fused the other half of the water transformation talisman together, its ability to separate the water veins would not disappear because of this. On the contrary, in the eyes of the mantis, cutting off a branch of the Qingming River was at least much easier than before. Lu Ping suppressed the joy in his heart and asked in a low voice, "Although you can separate a branch from the Qingming River, what do you need me to do? Will the separation process cause a lot of noise?" Although the 2 halves of the spiritual treasure could separate the water vein, it did not mean that Lu Ping could immediately put it into action. First of all, a pure yang spiritual treasure was not that easy to control. Even if it could be controlled, it might not be able to fully exert the power of the pure yang spiritual treasure. It also depended on who was in possession of the 2 halves. Back when it was only a 2nd tribulation spiritual treasure, the pure yang Laozu of Wuxing school was already able to use it to separate the water vein. Now that it was a pure yang spiritual treasure, if it was in the hands of Lu Ping, it would not be able to fully exert its potential, and he would not be able to separate the water vein either. After the mantis had become a pure yang spiritual treasure, its spiritual intelligence had obviously increased greatly. After a moment of silence, it said, if it were an ordinary mid-dharma adept, it would naturally be impossible to control a pure yang spiritual treasure. But back then, the water ape said that the technique you practiced was one of the 7 authentic techniques that Zhao Daoren had left behind. Coupled with the fact that your foundation is unbelievably strong, perhaps you can use 40 to 50% of the power of your original body. If that's the case, it should be enough. But doing so will obviously cause a lot of noise. At least the changes in the water vein of the Qingming River will not be able to hide from high-level adepts. It's up to you to find a way to confuse them. Lu Ping nodded and said, if that's the case, no matter what, I have to give it a try. It's just that after separating the water vein and bringing it to the base, it will still be a troublesome matter. It won't be easy to do it without attracting attention. The mantis chuckled and said, that will depend on how good the little beauty is. Linglong, who had been placed on top of the 5 elements ring by Lu Ping, popped her head out of the wine cauldron and made a face at Lu Ping. She said, "Don't worry, big brother." After Linglong absorbed the water ape's spiritual treasure, her own body has become more useful. It will not be difficult to bring the water vein here. And Linglong can also suppress the water vein in the base for a period of time. After the sect gives up on this base, the water vein can return to the main water vein. That way, no one will suspect that we have stolen the water vein of the Qingming River. Lu Ping was overjoyed. He said, "That's good. We just need to find the right time, and we can try it secretly." The battle outside the base continued. If it was a one-on-one fight, Xiahou Wushang and the others had the upper hand in the fight against the Jade Shura. As for Su Jin and Sang Yu, if they were given enough time, they could kill a Jade Shura. However, in this chaotic battle, the evil Luo army had the advantage in numbers. Although Zhenling's sect had some experts, they only had a total of 40 to 50 disciples. It was already not easy for them to defend their base. Naturally, they couldn't provide any help to the heirs of the various sects who were in the midst of the evil Luo army. So, although Xiahou Wushang, Su Jin, and the others were fighting against the Jade Shura, they were actually fighting against many people. They had to be careful of other Mara's interference. If someone like Mara intervened, they might be at a disadvantage. And there was also the Jade Demon. Shura and Xiuemo were in the same boat. If a Shura or a Xiuemo's power was equal, then when the two worked together, their power was not as simple as 1 + 1. Xiahou Wushang and the others were able to fight the Jade Shura without being at a disadvantage, even when they didn't have the upper hand. It was obvious that the people from the Holy Lands were not to be underestimated. Su Jin's cold ice silk sword was about to lock down the Jade Shura in front of him. The cold sword air made it difficult for the Jade Shura to move. Su Jin believed that he would only need a moment to injure the Jade Shura. But at this time, a bloodthirsty and violent presence invaded Su Jin's mind. Su Jin's face changed, and he quickly used his mind to block the soul-devouring god power. But the flying sword in his hand couldn't help but slow down. The Jade Shura, who had been trapped, suddenly found an opening and attacked. It broke Su Jin's sword formation. He saw that the points were flying away, and he had to start all over again. Su Jin looked in the direction of the soul-devouring god power, and he saw a jade demon hiding behind 2 Jade Shura. It was using its weird soul-devouring god power to harass everyone, and it was helping the other Jade Shura fight with the others. The 3 Jade Mara had come from the Mara army to join the fight after everyone started fighting. Luckily, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the 2 Laozu from Zhenling's side, quickly joined the fight. They managed to keep the 3 Jade Mara occupied, but they couldn't avoid the Jade Demon's support. Luckily, Su Jin had injured one of the Blood Shura at the beginning of the fight, and when he was fighting the Jade Shura, he took the chance to leave the fight and stab the Blood Shura. He got a point. Although it was only 30%, at least he didn't go back empty-handed. Sword cultivators were afraid of returning empty-handed after unsheathing their flying swords. Some extreme sword cultivators even had the principle of seeing blood when their flying swords were unsheathed. Although Su Jin didn't stop there, he didn't want to stand there without gaining anything. Compared to him, the Jade Shura that Xie Tianyang was facing was much worse. From the beginning of the fight, Xie Tianyang had targeted the Jade Shura. Even with the Jade Demon's support, Xie Tianyang clearly had a way to resist the Jade Demon's soul-devouring god power. At this time, the Jade Shura's companion spirit treasure was almost destroyed by Xie Tianyang, and there were a few sword wounds all over its body. Su Jin sighed. This 6th junior brother's cultivation was getting higher and higher. Although he was the 3rd heir of the Purple Sun Palace, in terms of power, Xie Tianyang was already above him. Sang Yu had originally planned to give up on this opportunity to compete for battle merits because of Wu Yinglan. With his help, Wu Yinglan had even successfully killed a blood demon. This was a kill against someone of the same level, so it was full of battle merits. However, the excited Wu Yinglan was immediately ambushed by a blood demon because she had left Sang Yu's rescue range. Then she was injured by a blood shura. In a rage, Sang Yu escorted Wu Yinglan back to the base, then turned back and killed his way into Mara's army. He forcefully took a blow from a Jade Shura and killed the Blood Shura that had injured Wu Yinglan. However, he was immediately engaged by the Jade Shura from before, so he knew that he couldn't get many points now. Xiahou Wushang's situation wasn't good either. Under the entanglement of a Jade Shura and 2 Blood Mara, he was at a disadvantage. However, with Yun Jian supporting him from the side, he wasn't completely suppressed. It was a pity that Yun Jian's cultivation was limited, so he couldn't give Xiahou Wushang too much support. On the other hand, Chan Yu and Chan Xiang seemed to be in a much better situation. These two had mid-Dharma level cultivation, and in terms of power, they might be slightly weaker than Xiahou Wushang. However, the two of them didn't fight alone. When they fought together, they had the upper hand. Chapter 1277. Since Su Jin, Xie Tianyang, and the other 2 Jade Shura had managed to fend off the 4 Jade Shura, the 2 sisters decided to join forces to fight against the only Jade Mara among the 5. Without the protection of the 4 Jade Shura, the other 3 Jade Mara that had rushed over were blocked by Tian Shui and Tian Fan, the 2 Laozu, so the Jade Demon simply gathered 3 Blood Shura to assist it from the side. With that, it was able to fend off the joint attack of the 2 sisters. However, Lu Tianyuan had already rushed over. Originally, Lu Tianyuan had only wanted to help the 2 sisters snatch battle merits. Seeing that they were entangled, he immediately launched a sneak attack on one of the Blood Shura. After Lu Tianyuan had fused with the Dharma soul left behind by Tian Kong Laozu, his cultivation had improved greatly. Among cultivators of the same level, his strength might not necessarily lose to cultivators of the same level from the large sections. Now that he had launched a sneak attack on the Blood Shura, he was able to heavily injure the Blood Shura in one fell swoop. After a series of fierce attacks, a battle merit of the same level was about to fall into his hands. Chan Yu, Chan Xiang, and Lu Tianyuan's group of 3 appeared to have a much easier time. However, the ones who were truly the best at snatching battle merits were Qing Hu and the other 2. This time, when Mara's army attacked, the first 5 Jade Mara were snatched by the proud and arrogant cultivators of the large sections. Qing Hu and the other 2 were unable to compete with them. As for the 3 Jade Mara that had rushed over later, they were blocked by the 2 Laozu, Tian Fan and Tian Shui. Qing Hu and the other 2 were still unable to interfere. Feeling helpless, the 3 of them could only join forces to deal with the bloody Mara. This time, the 3 of them managed to obtain quite a number of battle achievement points. Green Fox was a mid-Dharma adept, and her abilities were not weak to begin with. With Lu Ping's help, she had obtained the Thieving Divine Axe from the Thieving Heavens treasure trove, and her abilities had increased tremendously. Although she was no match for Xiahou Wushang, Chan Yu, Chan Xiang, and the other heirs of the major sects, she had a one-sided advantage against Blood Mara. In addition, she had Green Wolf and Green Tiger, who were both strong early Dharma adepts, by her side. After a series of battles, 3 Blood Azuras had fallen at the hands of the 3 of them. Furthermore, Green Wolf and Green Tiger had intentionally allowed the points of these 3 Blood Azuras to fall to Green Fox. In reality, if the points had fallen to Green Wolf and Green Tiger, because they were early Dharma adepts, their points would have been higher. However, it was clear that the 2 of them were not optimistic about their chances of obtaining battle achievement points. Instead, they were willing to work for Green Fox. The battle around the Jinling station was still in full swing. Under the leadership of Ji Tianxian and Li Tianru, close to 50 Jinling core forging adepts operated the Dao soldier formation and relied on the protection of the station to firmly block the attacks of Mara's army. Although Mara's army had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, because of the various Dharma adepts outside, Mara's army did not receive any help from the high-level Mara when they surrounded and attacked the formation. However, even so, Mara's army still caused some casualties to the Jinling disciples. Although Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian had already done their best to save them, the operation of the Dao soldier formation required the cooperation of tens of people. It was inevitable that there would be gaps, and Mara's army would be able to take advantage of them. At this point in the battle, 4 of the Jinling core forging disciples had already fallen, and more than 10 people had suffered injuries of varying severity. Among them, 5 people had no choice but to temporarily leave the operation of the Dao soldier formation because their injuries were more serious. However, this time, the attack of close to 1,000 Mara of various sizes had already been killed by the Dao soldier formation. Before Mara's flames of arrogance could even rise, it was once again extinguished. As the battle progressed, the morale of the Jinling soldiers became higher and higher. On the other hand, the morale of Mara's army had been worn down by the continuous casualties. This time, Mara's army's attack did not make any progress, causing the Azura behind to be extremely furious. A fierce roar could be heard, and one of the 3 Azura finally couldn't hold back and wanted to attack. In the encampment, Lu Ping's expression changed, and he hurriedly rushed out from the encampment's array disc. However, he saw that Han Huia and Tianshan Laozu had already stepped out of the encampment's array. Tianshan Laozu was holding on to the second tribulation spiritual treasure, mountain-splitting axe, while Han Huia was holding on to 2 jade whips. He had also taken Huo Wuin's jade whip. These 2 first tribulation spiritual treasures were like Tian Shui and Tian Fan Laozu's wind and snow dual fans. They were originally a set. Now that the wind and snow dual whips were in Han Huia's hands, their strength didn't decrease, but increased instead. Lu Ping looked at Lin Yu and Laozu. However, he saw Lin Yu and Laozu making a gesture to calm down. Lu Ping knew that the current situation hadn't reached the worst, so he didn't participate in the battle. Unexpectedly, the Azura let out a fierce roar, causing Jinling's army to panic. However, it was a signal to retreat. The Azura's sudden appearance was originally to restrain Jinling's army, allowing Mara's army, which was tangling with Jinling's army, to retreat smoothly. Jade Mara and Blood Mara, who were entangled with the others, took the opportunity to retreat. Very quickly, they gathered together and retreated. The numerous cultivators on Jinling's side wanted to rush forward and leave 1 or 2 Azura behind as battle merits. However, facing the gathered Mara's army, as well as the Azura that came to support them, they were all worried and didn't dare to chase after them. For a moment, Chan Yu, Chan Xiang, Xiahou Wushang, Su Jin, and Seng Yu, who were fighting Jade Mara, retreated. Chan Yu was so angry that she directly killed a blood Azura that was being suppressed by Lu Tianyuan, forcibly snatching 3 points from Lu Tianyuan's hands, causing Lu Tianyuan to smile bitterly. Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the 2 Laozu, who were able to block 3 Jade Mara's attacks, had already done their best. Now that Mara had retreated, the 2 of them let out a sigh of relief. Xiahou Wushang, Su Jin, and Sang Yu saw that there was no hope of stopping the Jade Shura. They originally wanted to turn around and kill a few Blood Shura, but they didn't succeed. Only Qing Hu and the other 2 were stronger than the Blood Mara, so when Mara's army retreated, they took the opportunity to kill a Blood Shura. The 3 of them rushed forward, and naturally, the Blood Shura was no match for them. In the end, it was killed by Qing Hu's axe. Her imaging stone showed that her battle merits had reached 14 points. Among them, only Xie Tianyang was chasing the Jade Shura that he was fighting, but in reality, he was also chasing the Jade Shura towards Mara's army. Everyone turned pale with fright. Just as they were about to step forward to stop him, it was already too late. They heard the Azura in the distance roar. It stretched out its hand and grabbed. A giant hand of spiritual energy slapped towards Xie Tianyang's head. Seeing that Xie Tianyang was about to be hit by the spiritual chi hand, the space around him began to shake because of the descent of the spiritual chi hand. It was obvious that the Azura's attack wanted to kill Xie Tianyang. The shaking space had cut off Xie Tianyang's path of retreat. At this critical moment, 2 crisp sounds came from the void. Han Huia, who was hundreds of feet away, suddenly made his move. 2 whip shadows crisscrossed through the air, cutting off half of the giant hand made of spiritual energy in one fell swoop. However, the remaining half of the palms still enveloped Xie Tianyang. Seeing that Xie Tianyang was about to die, the usually calm and collected ancestor of Tianshan suddenly let out a roar. The mountain-splitting axe flew out of his hand and instantly arrived above Xie Tianyang's head. It drew a semicircular arc and completely shattered the remaining half of the giant spiritual energy palm, allowing Xie Tianyang to escape from danger. At this time, there was a scream. The Jade Shura, who had been chased by Xie Tianyang, was hit by the flaming sky sun sword. Her whole body was on fire, and there was a scream coming from the fire. Xie Tianyang let out a long sigh of relief. His back was soaked in cold sweat, and he didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and flew back to Jinling's camp. Su Jin came to help him. When the two of them saw each other, they were scolded by Su Jin. Xie Tianyang just laughed and didn't say anything. He just thanked Lao Zu of Sky Mountain for helping him. In fact, when Mara's army was retreating, it was the best time to kill the Jade Shura that Xie Tianyang was suppressing. Because all of the Mara were retreating, and the blood Mara that had been harassing Xie Tianyang had retreated, the Jade Shura was now alone and helpless. Xie Tianyang was eager to make a contribution, so he naturally did not want to give up this fleeting opportunity. For a moment, he forgot that there was an Azura coming to rescue him not far away. If Han Huia and the Celestial Mountain Patriarch tried their best to save him, Xie Tianyang would probably have to pay with his life. That Azura stopped attacking after missing his first strike. Instead, he retreated with the Mara army, and everyone else returned to Zhenling Sect's encampment. Xie Tianyang saw that no one else had managed to kill the Jade Mara other than him, and the fear he felt earlier was long forgotten. He immediately became arrogant. Show them all. Let's see how many points you have. Xie Tianyang shouted. He wanted all the mid-Dharma adepts who had agreed to fight this time to show their kill records. He had killed a Jade Shura, which was 10 points. Xiahou Wushang and Chan Xiang had nothing. Chan Yu had 3 points, but it was the blood Shura that she had taken from Lu Tianyuan. Su Jin had also killed a blood Shura, so he also had 3 points. Sang Yu had killed a blood demon, so she had 5 points. Xie Tianyang saw that everyone was a level lower than him, and his whole aura changed. He was like a true adept from a holy land, which made Su Jin laugh bitterly. Brother Lu, didn't you also have a battle with the evil Luo army before? Show us your points and let us have a look. Although Lu Tianyuan and the others were not qualified to participate because they were early Dharma adepts, this did not stop them from seeing the results of the fights. However, when they saw Xie Tianyang challenge Lu Ping, Lu Tianyuan, Qin Yu, and Qin Gang all had strange expressions on their faces. However, Xie Tianyang was too excited to notice their expressions. Seeing Xie Tianyang's provocation, Lu Ping smiled and said, "There's no hurry. There's still one more person you haven't fought." Xie Tianyang chuckled and said, "Who else?" Lu Ping pointed at Green Fox and said, "Her." "How many?" Cyan Fox chuckled softly as she handed her photographic stone to Xie Tianyang. The number of points she had accumulated was clearly displayed on it, 14. Chapter 1278. Xie Tianyang immediately yelled at the sight of the 14 accolades on the Azure Fox imaging stone. "That's impossible." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Why not? Just take a look at the recording on the stone and you'll know." Xie Tianyang still did not believe it. He took Green Fox's imaging stone and said, "I noticed that I was the only one who killed the Jade Shura in this battle. None of you did. How could you surpass me?" Lu Ping and Green Fox smiled but did not say anything. Green Wolf and Green Tiger looked at each other, waiting to see Xie Tianyang make a fool of himself. The 3 blood Shuras had a total of 9 points, and the blood demon had 5 points. That was a total of 14 points. Xie Tianyang even carefully looked at the recording of how Green Fox had killed the 4 Mara Shuras. "Cheating! You guys are cheating! It's one thing for a mid-Dharma adept to kill the blood demon Luo, who was 1 level lower than you, but you even teamed up with 2 early Dharma adepts and gave the last hit to you. No wonder your score is higher than mine. I can't accept this." Xie Tianyang pounded his chest and stamped his feet, but the others all burst into laughter. Green Fox giggled as she snatched the imaging stone back from Xie Tianyang's hands. "Who can we blame for this? You all were too quick to act. You divided up a few Jade Demons right away, and will be looking for another Jade Demon to fight against. Are you all willing to give it up?" Xie Tianyang was exasperated, but when he saw Lu Ping's carefree smile, it was as if he had found a straw to clutch at. He hurriedly said, Brother Lu, we've seen Sister Qing Hu's battle achievements. It's time for you to show us your points. We were outnumbered, that's why we couldn't get more points. How many points did you get when you fought against the demon Luo army? Even Sister Qing Hu has more points than you. Don't tell me you can't even beat me, old Xie, he. Lu Ping laughed as he looked at Xie Tianyong. Brother Xie, are you sure you want to compete? Xie Tianyong was not confident. It was not just Xie Tianyong. The other Holy Land's heirs were the same. Although all of them were prideful and wanted to compete with Lu Ping, they would not have agreed to the accumulated points challenge earlier. However, each of them knew very well that this North Sea Water Sword Immortal was someone who had even defeated several great cultivators. No matter how indignant they were, they really did not have the confidence to completely defeat a great cultivator. This gap was not something that could be bridged just by being indignant. Although Xie Tianyong wasn't confident, it was still a joke between good friends. He continued to shout, "Stop talking nonsense and show us. What's wrong? You don't dare? Are you trying to trick us?" Xie Tianyong was even trying to goad Xie Tianyong. Although the others did not say anything, they looked very eager. Clearly, they also wanted to know Lu Ping's accumulated points. Lu Ping also chuckled and gave Xie Tianyong a look that said, "Don't regret this." Then he took out his own imaging stone. Everyone swarmed over, and they saw a despairing number on Lu Ping's imaging stone. 50. Xie Tianyong immediately cried out, "No way!" Sang Yu, who was beside him, was also shocked. "That's too fake. You were going to stop Mara's army, but you were outnumbered. Did you mean that Mara's army just stood there and let you kill them?" Not only the two of them, but the others were also looking at Lu Ping strangely. 1 Jade Shura, 1 Jade Demon, 5 Blood Shuras, and 2 Blood Demons. Such a result made everyone look at each other in bewilderment. On the side, Xie Tianyong opened the imaging stone to record the entire process. He only saw Lu Ping waving his hand, and a large number of demonic luos were turned into dried corpses that fell from the sky. For a moment, everyone was shocked. Xie Tianyong even muttered, "So cruel, so cruel." Even Qin Yu and Qin Gang, who had personally witnessed Lu Ping's art of changing seas and mulberry fields, felt a chill run down their spines when they saw Lu Ping's peerless divine ability again. But everyone saw something else from the imaging stone. Lu Ping had always been a swordsman in the world of practice. Even now, Lu Ping was like the sun in the sky on the Central Plains. People called him the North Sea Water Sword Immortal. But in the process of killing so many Maras, the imaging stone didn't show Lu Ping's swordsmanship. It was obviously some other kind of power. But wasn't Lu Tianping a swordsman? Had Lu Tianping been hiding his true power all this time? This person's attainment in swordsmanship was already so high. Just what level had his true power reached? Was the strange power shown by the imaging stone a display of his true power? Everyone looked at Lu Ping with complicated gazes. They had not been able to achieve the desired result when they were outnumbered. They had felt a little regretful at first, but when they saw the shocking scene shown by Lu Ping's imaging stone, they realized that Lu Ping had been in a much more serious situation than they had expected. Xie Tianyong and the others were all proud and arrogant people. After seeing everything that flashed in the imaging stone, they had no choice but to admit that Lu Ping's true strength was probably much higher than they had estimated. The gap between them and Lu Ping was also clearly much larger than they had imagined. Mara's army had just dispersed, but no one knew if they would attack again in the next moment. Although everyone had made a ruckus because of the arranged battle, they still knew what was important. After they split up, they began to use the spiritual qi that the Zhenling camp could barely gather to recover the vital qi in their bodies so that they could deal with the battle that could happen at any time. Although Lu Ping had not participated in the battle just now, he did not want to disturb everyone, so he left. Unexpectedly, Xie Tianyong stopped him. "I have to thank Senior Lin Yu. Han Huia must have intervened because of him. If it wasn't for him, I might have lost my life at the hands of that Azura." Lu Ping shrugged and said, "Can you find him now?" After the Azura appeared, Lin Yu Laozu suddenly disappeared from Zhenling's camp. However, Lu Ping's divine telekinesis was powerful enough to confirm that Lin Yu Laozu was still in Jinling's camp. He had just concealed his figure and aura so that no one could detect him. That's why I'm asking you. You've been in the camp all this time, so you must know where he went. Xie Tianyang said matter-of-factly. Lu Ping spread his hands helplessly and said, I don't know either. Of course, Lu Ping knew where Lin Yu Laozu was, but Lin Yu Laozu had hidden himself for a reason. Even if Lu Ping knew where Lin Yu Laozu was, he would not expose him. Xie Tianyang was a little puzzled and said, Why did Senior Lin Yu hide? Did he want to trick the Azura? But with his strength, he did not have to do that, did he? Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't tell them about Lin Yu's injuries. Instead, he looked around and said, Brother Xie, do you know why the Azura army didn't launch a full-scale attack on our sect's encampment? Instead, they only sent out 8 Jade Demon Azuras. If the 3 Azuras and the remaining Jade Demon Azuras attacked together, we wouldn't be able to defend our encampment. Xie Tianyang also cast a glance at the void surrounding the encampment. Pursing his lips, he sneered, What's so strange about that? The Moro army has caused such a huge commotion, and there are more than one sect around the encampment. I'm afraid that all the sects that participated in the battle against the Moro army have already received the news. I'm afraid that there are already many people lurking in the nearby void. They're just watching from the sidelines or waiting to take advantage of the situation. However, Azura has obviously discovered these enemies hiding in the void. They're worried that they'll be attacked from the back if they go all out, so they naturally don't dare to put all their strength into attacking the encampment. Xie Tianyang suddenly realized something and said, Are you saying that Senior Lin Yu wants to lure the cultivators hiding in the empty space to attack? Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, If we don't think of a way to stop these people from attacking, once the 3 Azuras can't hold back an attack, do you think our camp will be able to withstand them? Xie Tianyang was confused and said, Then can't he just reveal his identity? With his strength, he can at least hold back 2 Azuras. It might not be impossible for him to stop all 3 of them. Coupled with pure Yang Laozu's rallying power, once the surrounding cultivators attack, the chances of winning are quite high. Lu Ping naturally could not tell him that Lin Yu Laozu was heavily injured. He only sighed and said, Brother Xie, Jinling is not your Purple Sun Palace. Lin Yu Laozu is also not comparable to pure Yang Laozu of Purple Sun Palace. These people are people who won't act until they see the rabbit. If we want them to attack, even if we have a 100% chance of winning, there will only be a sliver of a chance if we can guarantee their own safety. Lu Ping smiled bitterly and said, After all, Mo Luo's counterattack this time is aimed at our sect's encampment. Even if Mo Luo manages to open up a path to break out of the encirclement, the sect will still be responsible for it. In a situation where it has nothing to do with them, they would rather watch our sect fight to the last man than help us. It was not that Xie Tianyang did not understand this, but because of his background, he did not need to consider these things at all. After all, no one in the cultivation world could force Purple Sun Palace into such a predicament. Then how is Senior Lin Yu going to lure these people who are watching from the sidelines to attack? Let's wait and see. Chapter 1279. Jinling had suffered quite a number of casualties in this battle. 5 of the core forging stage cultivators in the Dao soldier formation had fallen, and nearly 10 of them were injured. Lu Ping checked on a few of the more seriously injured ones before rushing over to Wanglin's side. Sang Yu was extremely regretful. He had only been distracted for a moment, and Wanglin had been consecutively ambushed and injured by the Blood Demon and Blood Azura. Fortunately, Wanglin was not weak, and her injuries were not life-threatening. Lu Ping had naturally prepared sufficient pills in his hands. After consuming a soul return pill, she woke up from her coma. However, it was obvious that she would not be able to make it in time for the next battle. Lu Ping even suspected that even if Wanglin had recovered by then, Sang Yu would not allow her to participate in the next battle. Other than Wanglin, Tian Fan, Tian Shui, Qin Yu, Qin Gang, and Ji Tianxian all had some injuries on their bodies. However, these injuries did not have much of an impact on their own strength. If they were also unable to participate in the battle, it was likely that Zhenling would really fall this time. In a hidden corner of the encampment, Lu Ping once again met Lin Yu Laozu. "Brat, your divine sense is really extraordinary. You can even find the old man when he is hiding." Lin Yu Laozu said that he was surprised, but his expression seemed to have already predicted that Lu Ping would be able to find him. "Senior, the current situation is not good." Although Lu Ping had previously downplayed the situation to Xie Tianyang, he was obviously deeply worried. Seeing Huo Wuyin similarly lying at Lin Yu Laozu's feet, he could not help but ask, "Senior, you?" Lin Yu Laozu clapped his hands and said, "The wind and rain dual whips are famous practitioners in the cultivation world. The wind and rain whips being controlled by Han Weia alone cannot be compared to two people controlling one each. Han Weia and Huo Wuyin working together can at least block an Azura." Lu Ping also agreed with this point. After all, these two people were able to escape from Seven Fan Laozu's hands when working together. It might not be easy to suppress an Azura, but it was not too difficult to entangle it. However, this sealing secret technique of yours is really very strange. Lin Yu Laozu had a look of surprise and said, "After using the secret technique, the old man actually could not undo the seal you placed on this person." Lu Ping said, "This person's foundation has already been damaged by me. I am afraid that in this life, there is no possibility of him advancing an inch. Now that he is also injured, how much of his strength can he use?" Lin Yu Laozu seemed to be unaware of Lu Ping's viciousness. He only thought for a moment and said, "At least he is much stronger than a mid-Dharma adept. However, after this battle, this person will probably be crippled." Lu Ping smiled and said, "Since there is a feud with the Taixin sect, with the Taixin sect's personality of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance, it does not matter how big or small the feud is." Lin Yu Laozu smiled and did not say anything, obviously agreeing with what Lu Ping had said. Lu Ping then tapped a few points on Huo Wuyin's body. Huo Wuyin immediately woke up, but his expression was a little dazed. He could only obediently take the spiritual treasure rain whip from Han Weia's hands. Compared to Huo Wuyin, who had a blank expression, Han Weia's eyes were already turning. Lin Yu Laozu slapped Han Weia on the top of his head and dispersed the divine will that he had painstakingly gathered. He sighed and said, "This late Dharma adept is really not easy to control. In comparison, this Huo Wuyin is much easier to control after being injured." After dealing with Huo Wuyin, Lu Ping then remembered the reason why he was looking for Lin Yu Laozu this time. He asked, "Senior, what do you think is the possibility of the people around the encampment making a move?" Lin Yu Laozu did not even think about it and said, "That depends on how much power Zhenling has shown this time. If he is able to stop 3 Azuras, however, it is best for your sect to prepare an escape route in advance. If things go south, you can immediately return to the North Sea. At least you can preserve your sect's strength." Lu Ping's heart sank and he said, "Senior, are you saying that there may be reinforcements from Mara's army?" Lin Yu Laozu waved his hand and handed a jade scroll to him. He said, "This is the message that Brother Xiao sent earlier. Take a look for yourself." Lu Ping scanned the contents of the jade scroll with his divine sense and his expression turned ugly. He said, "My sect is not the only one attacking Mara's army this time?" Lin Yu Laozu nodded and said, "Not only is this not the only one, but the one attacking your sect is actually the weakest of the Mara's armies. The other Mara's armies have all been supported by heavenly demons. This is also why the pure yang cultivators have not appeared here all this time." Lu Ping's expression changed for a long time before he said, "Senior, are you saying that the other armies that have broken out of the encampment are all feints? The one that is coming for our sect might actually be the real one?" Lin Yu Laozu was stunned for a moment and said, "That's not impossible. There might be an expert in Mara's army to guide them." Lu Ping did not see the mocking expression on Lin Yu Laozu's face. He only said, "Could it be that there are existences that are more powerful than heavenly demons in Mara's army?" Lin Yu Laozu was stunned again. Obviously, Lu Ping did not understand the meaning of his words. However, what Lu Ping said did not seem unreasonable. He seemed to have heard of a similar legend before, but no one had appeared to prove it. However, thinking about the 9 mystical tower that had been besieged for more than 10 years, it was one of the 5 holy lands of Central Earth, and there were true spirit cultivators in the sect. Especially when he saw the power of Wuxing School with the heaven-opening artifact at the foot of Luoxin Mountain, the 9 mystical tower and Wuxing School might have a sect treasure that was comparable to the cauldron of heaven and earth. Under such circumstances, they were still besieged by Mara's army for more than 10 years. It was naturally possible that there were Asuras and heavenly demons in Mara's army, but if there were existences that surpassed heavenly demons, this explanation seemed to be more reasonable. Lin Yu Laozu was reminded by Lu Ping's unintentional words. As his thoughts scattered, he suddenly thought of more things. If there was really such an existence, why did 8th Sister Zhu never mention it? Were the other holy lands also kept in the dark? However, if there was really such an existence, in Lin Yu Laozu's opinion, the other holy lands most likely knew about it, so it could be said that they deliberately concealed this information. However, what was their purpose in concealing this information? Among the 13 Pure Yang Masters, were there other people who knew about this information? For a moment, Lin Yu Laozu felt that there might be some unknown conspiracy hidden in this battle to besiege Mara. Lin Yu Laozu, who was a rogue cultivator, even felt that there was almost no one he could trust anymore. Before Lu Ping left, Lin Yu Laozu handed a purple jade slip to Lu Ping and said, "This is the Supreme Divine Sense secret technique that the old man told you about before. This time, the battle to besiege Mara is unpredictable. I'm afraid things are not as simple as they seem on the surface. If you want to enter the 7th Patriarch's Taoist altar, keep your life first. In the future, as long as you help the Qin brothers, it will be considered as repaying the old man's favor today." Lu Ping hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior has already passed the inheritance of Heavenly Yi sect to the 2 Qin brothers. Why can't you help them rebuild their sect? With Senior's identity as Pure Yang Laozu in the future, regardless of whether it is Luo Xen sect or Heavenly Yi sect, I'm afraid their influence will be greater than before." Lin Yu Laozu shook his head and said, "If the old man wanted to rebuild Heavenly Yi sect, why would he wait until now? The old man is ultimately used to this kind of leisurely life. Things like sects are too complicated. The old man is really not willing to participate in it." Lu Ping found Tian Fan, Tian Shui, and Tian Shan Laozu. He told the 3 of them about the information he got from Lin Yu Laozu. The 3 Laozu's faces were obviously not looking good. "Indeed, we need to prepare a path of retreat. Our sect cannot fight a war of attrition with Mara's army here. Once the cultivators from the various sects choose not to take action, we might have to retreat back to the Northern Sea," Tian Shui Laozu said as he exchanged glances with Tian Fan and Tian Shan Laozu. He continued, "When the time comes, you just need to bring your disciples and leave. Your senior uncle Tian Fan, senior uncle Tian Shan, and I will stay behind to cover the retreat." Staying behind to cover the retreat often meant death. Lu Ping raised his brows and said, "It's better if I stay behind. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but the 2 senior martial granduncles and junior martial uncle might not be stronger than me." Tian Shan Laozu spoke the truth. It's not that they might not be. With your current strength, none of us are your match. It is precisely because of this that you are allowed to lead your disciples back to the Northern Sea. Along the way, the various sects are filled with hungry wolves that will devour people without spitting out the bones. If we don't have someone who can lead us, who knows how many of our disciples will survive when we return to the Northern Sea? Lu Ping wanted to say something, but Tian Fan Laozu interrupted him. "This matter is decided. You don't need to say anything else. We are old to begin with. How many more years do we have left to live? On the contrary, you must continue living. As long as you are alive, we can protect the sect's 1,000-year foundation." After Mara's army retreated, they didn't give Jinling much time to rest. Amidst the shrill cries of the Jade Demons, Mara's army regrouped and once again charged towards Jinling's camp. This time, Mara's army really staked everything on this one attack. More than 2,000 Mara of all sizes rushed ashore from the Qingming River and charged towards Jinling's camp. Blood Mara and Jade Mara's auras were hidden among Mara's army, But the cultivators in the camp all turned their attention to the three auras that were as violent as the sun behind Mara's army. The three Asuras finally couldn't hold back and attacked with all their might. Lu Ping stretched out his hand, and a purplish-blue cloud sail instantly spread out. Then, it turned into balls of auspicious clouds that attached themselves to the protective shield of the camp's formation. With the cloud sail's protection, at least Lu Ping didn't have to worry about the ordinary Jinling disciples behind the formation being attacked by the demonic cultivator's soul-devouring magic. Other than the injured Huayanglin, Li Tianru, and Ji Tianxian who continued to control the formation, all the Dharma adepts in the camp came to the protective shield of the camp. The Mara's army was already more than 100 feet away. Lu Ping suddenly shouted, "Out!" Li Tianru, Ji Tianxian, and Lu Ping each raised a large bell in midair. Lu Ping shouted again, "Break!" Ding, ding, ding. 3 loud sounds rang out almost at the same time. Other than the fake vast ocean bell in Lu Ping's hand, the other 2 bells shattered under the heavy blows, leaving only a pile of scrap metal on the ground. Chapter 1280. 2 of the 3 sea bell replicas were smashed in an instant, leaving only the one in Lu Ping's hands of the highest quality still hanging in midair. However, the one ringing the bell had been replaced by Huayanglin, who was too injured to fight. The Mara army, which had already suffered a loss before, was not unprepared. Blood demons and jade demons hid among the attacking Mara army in order to prevent the chaos that would occur when the bell rang. However, they did not expect that Jinling's side was even more ruthless. They kept producing more bronze bells, and in order to unleash the greatest power of the replicas, they directly smashed 2 of them. The booming sound of the sea bell once again caused the Mara army, which was charging at the forefront, to descend into chaos. Dozens of Mara, big and small, fell straight down from midair. Many of the remaining Mara also spun in midair as if they were dizzy. Blood demons and jade demons who were hiding among the Mara army did their best to command, but they were unable to eliminate this chaos in a short period of time. Lu Ping shouted, "Kill!" Other than Li Tianru and Ji Tianxian, who were presiding over the Tao soldier formation, as well as Huayanglin, who was ringing the bronze bell, the remaining Dharma adepts all killed their way out of Jinling's camp. Lu Ping was the first to turn the thin water-flowing sword into a sky full of sword light. The Great River Flow's East Sword technique was no longer an indomitable force. Instead, it expanded the area of attack as much as possible, becoming a flood that broke a dam and spread out. All the Mara in front of Lu Ping, whether big or small, were all included in his killing range. It was a pity that there was not enough time, and the timing of the previous epiphany was extremely difficult to grasp. Otherwise, Lu Ping would not have minded using the Great River Flow's East technique again. Although the Great River Flow's East Sword technique did not have the incredible power of the Great River Flow's East technique, this sword technique was superior in that it was flexible. There were nearly 500 Mara, big and small, at the forefront of the Mara army, and in an instant, 150 of them were swept away by Lu Ping's sword light. Once again, 60 to 70 Mara fell from the sky like dumplings being dropped into a pot. The remaining half also retreated in a panic, causing the Mara army that was charging up from behind to be thrown into disarray once again. The remaining 40 to 50 Mara ultimately managed to avoid Lu Ping's sword light, but it was also because of the blood Mara that was hidden among these 150 Mara. Even so, there were 2 blood Shuras that had charged too close to the front. In the instant that Lu Ping's sword light swept over, Lu Ping was able to capture their tracks. Then, the Nether Water Sword and Lu Xiaoping disappeared into the sword light. By the time Lu Ping's Great River Flow's East Sword technique dissipated the sword light, these 2 blood Shuras had already died at the hands of Lu Ping, and he had obtained another 60% of the battle credit. The Jade Mara that was hidden among the Mara army clearly did not expect that the opponent's Dharma adept would actually attack the ordinary Mara right from the start. Coupled with the chaos caused by the 2 bronze bells being smashed, Lu Ping actually managed to defeat more than 100 Mara vanguards in one go. There was a whistling sound, and 2 Jade Shuras and 1 Jade Demon charged towards Lu Ping from within the Mara army. The scene of Lu Ping single-handedly killing hundreds of Mara on the Qingming River was still fresh in their minds. The Mara army was very wary of Lu Ping. It was not just Lu Ping. In the instant that the imitation sea bell had been struck, Xie Tianyang, who had been following closely behind Lu Ping, had also charged into the Mara army. A blazing sky sun sword was like a blazing sun that had fallen into the mortal realm. Everywhere he passed, there was a blinding white flash, and then Mara after Mara, whose entire body was set ablaze, screamed as they fell from the sky. However, Xie Tianyang was clearly not like Lu Ping, who had deliberately targeted the ordinary Mara. He had charged into the Mara army purely for the Blood Mara and Jade Mara, who were normally hidden among them. He wanted to kill them in one go so that he could gain some battle credits. The Mara that had been killed by him were just blocking his way. And Xie Tianyang's ferocious charge had very quickly allowed him to track down the tracks of a blood demon. At that moment, he charged forward as if he was in a killing frenzy. The extreme Yang sword technique, which was passed down in the direct lineage of the Ziyang Palace, was directly unleashed by the sword chi of the blazing sky sun sword into a ball of fire. The blood demon was instantly reduced to ashes within the ball of sword chi. The flying sword in his hand turned, and he was going to kill a blood shura that had been trying to save the blood demon, but had unexpectedly been frightened by Xie Tianyang's violent attack and turned to kill it. But the high-ranking Mara that was hidden among the Mara army was clearly also not happy. A Jade Shura was the first to attack, and Xie Tianyang had no choice but to abandon the Blood Shura that had been scared away and turn around to fight the Jade Shura. At this time, the Blood Shura that had attacked earlier turned around and ran back, and began to help the Jade Shura harass Xie Tianyang. This made Xie Tianyang so angry that he vented all his anger on the Jade Shura opposite him. For a moment, both the Jade Shura and the Blood Shura were beaten to a pulp. Previously, Lu Ping's 50 battle points had really provoked Xie Tianyang. Xie Tianyang admitted that he could not see through Lu Ping's abilities, but he did not think that he was that far behind. In fact, it was not just Xie Tianyang. Although the other direct lineage adepts in the Middle Dharma stage had been laughing at Xie Tianyang's defeat by Lu Ping earlier, each of them had been suppressing their anger and wanting to compete with each other. Following closely behind the two of them, the group of mid-Dharma adepts and the two grand adepts who were being controlled swarmed forward. The 500 vanguard of the demon Luo army were all cut down as if they were vegetables, and not many of them were left. The sudden burst of power from Zhenling's side caused the entire Mara army to tremble, and the less than 2,000 Mara soldiers all stopped in their tracks for a moment. And the blood Mara hidden among the 500 vanguard troops was also killed by the direct lineages of the various sects who had suddenly rushed out to snatch the battle points. With their previous experience, these direct lineages of the Middle Dharma stage were much smarter. Although killing Jade Mara would give them more points, killing Blood Mara was obviously easier and faster to obtain points. Xiahou Wushang, who was following closely behind Xie Tianyang, also quickly caught up with a Blood Shura that was fleeing in a panic. In the previous battle, among the Middle Dharma adepts, only Xiahou Wushang and Chan Xiang of the Heavenly Moon sect had not gained a single point. Although Xiahou Wushang was not born into a direct lineage of a holy land like Xie Tianyang, his personality was indeed more arrogant than the former, and it was impossible for him to take such a blow. Seeing that a Jade Shura was closing in to help the fleeing Blood Shura, Xiahou Wushang still brazenly struck out with his sword, wanting to kill the Blood Shura before the Jade Shura's attack arrived. Yun Jian, who was following behind him, saw that his senior was in danger, and hurriedly leaped forward, the flying sword in his hand turning into threads of sword light, as if weaving a cloud of mist in an instant to protect Xiahou Wushang as much as possible. In the 3 swords of thunder and cloud, Yun Jian used the cloud mist sword to confuse the enemy and focus on defense, Thunder Sword used brute force and focus on attack, and Lightning Sword used sneak attacks and focus on killing. The 3 of them worked well together, and they made a name for themselves among the direct lineage adepts of the Tianxian sect. Although they were not as good as the top 5 direct lineage adepts of the Tianxian sect, when the 3 of them worked together, it was not difficult for them to challenge those of a higher level. Now that Thunder Sword and Lightning Sword had fallen, and Yun Jian had been seriously injured and had delayed his training, The gap between their levels was even greater. Yun Jian knew that he would not be able to block a single attack from the Jade Shura, but at this time he still resolutely went forward. The companion spiritual treasure in the Jade Shura's hand was getting closer and closer, but Yun Jian had already wove the threads of sword light into a sword cloud that was as black as ink. Yun Jian had used up all his strength, and the rest was up to fate. There was a muffled sound, and for Yun Jian, the fateful moment had come. The sword cloud that he had wove suddenly disappeared, and the blood in Yun Jian's body churned. In the end, he still could not block it. Yun Jian had already closed his eyes and waited for death, but suddenly there was a dang sound above his head, and Xiahou Wushang's voice came into his ear. "You're taking too much risk, get back." When Yun Jian looked up, Xiahou Wushang was already fighting with the Jade Shura, and not far away, a headless blood Shura was falling into the Qingming River. Yun Jian's block had caused the Jade Shura's attack to slow down a little. After Xiahou Wushang had successfully killed the blood Shura, he turned around and saved Yun Jian, who was fighting with all his might. Yun Jian let out a sigh of relief, and the blood in his body churned. He was very excited. Although he had only blocked half of the Jade Shura's attack, for Yun Jian, it was a great boost to his confidence. After retreating a distance, he formed a line of defense with the early Dharma adepts on Jinling's side, and began to block the Mara army that was attacking the camp's formation. At this time, almost all the mid-Dharma adepts had engaged in battle with the Jade Mara. Lu Ping alone was holding off 3 Jade Mara, while Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the 2 Laozu, were holding off 2 Jade Shura. Xie Tianyang was surrounded by 1 Jade Shura and 2 Blood Mara. Su Jin was also fighting a Jade Shura, while Chan Yu and Chan Xiang teamed up with Lu Tianyuan to fight a Jade Shura and a Jade Demon. Lao Zu of Tianshan was also fighting a Jade Demon and 2 Blood Shura. Xiahou Wushang and Sang Yu were also fighting 2 Jade Shura, while Qin Hu and the other 2 were fighting 1 Jade Demon and 2 Blood Shura together. Behind these mid-Dharma adepts, Tian, Samling, Qin Yu, Qin Gang, Yun Jian, and the others formed a second line of defense with the protection of the camp's formation. They tried their best to stop the Blood Mara that was charging towards them, preventing them from joining the Mara army in attacking the protective walls of the formation. Behind them, the 3 Talents and 5 Elements formation was operating at full power. Under the protection of the cloud sails and the camp's formation, the Mara's attacks on the camp became Jinling's last line of defense. However, just as the battlefield was in a stalemate, 2 people rushed out from Jinling's camp. These 2 people immediately rushed into Lu Ping's battle with the 3 Mara. 2 whips, like snakes, took advantage of the moment when Lu Ping's full-force attack had forced the 3 Jade Mara into a panic and wrapped around the necks of 2 Jade Shura. Just as these 2 people appeared from the camp, the roar of 3 lives came from behind Mara's army. The 3 Azuras who had not made a move yet were about to take the opportunity to break the stalemate, but unexpectedly, Jinling's side had taken the initiative. Chapter 1281. Han Weia and Hua Wuing, the 2 great cultivators, had interfered in the battle at just the right time. Not only did the 3 Azuras become extremely furious, but even the cultivators from the various sects who were watching from the sidelines were also muttering to themselves that this was too much of a coincidence. Just as the 2 great cultivators attacked, Lu Ping, who had been attacked by the 3-headed Jade Mara, suddenly unleashed his power. The thin water-flowing sword split into 2 green dragons that pounced towards the 2 Jade Shuras on the left and right. Following closely behind the 2 dragons was a flash of blue light from the sword, and a small person about a foot tall. At the same time, Lu Ping's divine sense turned into a raging wave of fire and rushed towards the Jade Demon behind the 2 Jade Shuras with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The protective treasures like the Cloud Sail and the Sea Bell were not in his hands, so the impact of Lu Ping's divine will was not amplified. However, Lu Ping took the opportunity to reach out and grab the air. A thunderball descended from the sky. After the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash had absorbed a bit of the pure Yang Thunder Calamity, its quality had increased again, and its power had also increased. Although it could not be used by Lu Ping in front of him, This divine thunder of Inkue water was still a serious threat to the Jade Demon. The three-headed Jade Mara's tacit cooperation was finally interrupted by Lu Ping's full-force attack. Just as the three-headed Jade Mara was flustered, the two great cultivators, Han Huia and Huo Wuing, suddenly attacked before the three Asuras could. The wind and rain dual whip's tacit cooperation was not inferior to the wind and snow dual fans. Moreover, these two spiritual treasures were wielded by two late Dharma great cultivators who were far superior to Tian Fan and Tian Shui. The two Jade Shuras were unable to resist, and their heads were curled up by the two whips. The netherworld aqua sword pierced through the void, and a purplish-blue lightning was born on the blade. It pierced through the Jade Shura's body, and then the lightning exploded, instantly killing the Jade Shura. After Lu Ping combined the formless sword technique with the thunderclap sword technique, it impressively became a new type of swordsmanship divine ability that was extremely lethal to Mara. On the other side, Lu Xiaohai took advantage of the fact that the Jade Shura's neck was wrapped around by the wind whip. He stabbed the willow sword into the Jade Shura's eyeball and into her brain. In the blink of an eye, two Jade Shura had been killed, and he had earned another 20 points. The projection stone showed that Lu Ping now had 76 points. However, Lu Ping didn't have the time to gloat over his achievement. The three Asuras had instantly plunged Zhenling's sect into a dangerous situation. The death of two Jade Asuras was not enough to make up for the situation. Two of the enraged Asuras went for Han Huia and Huo Wuing, while the other went for Lu Ping. From the time that Mara's army had traveled upstream to the Qingming River, the number of Jade Mara that had fallen to Lu Ping had reached 4. Lu Ping had become a major threat to Mara's army. Huo Wuing, who was on the left, was sent flying when he came into contact with the other Asura. Huo Wuing's power had been reduced by less than half because of Lu Ping's attack, and he couldn't even take one hit from the Asura. Han Huia, who was on the right, managed to block the Asura's attack, but he was affected by the Asura's control. He couldn't react fast enough, and he was forced to retreat under the Asura's attack. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated. Lu Ping wasn't just facing an Asura. He was also facing a Jade Demon, who had just recovered from Lu Ping's attack. The Jade Demon threw a crystalline skull out of the protective black mist that had almost been destroyed by Lu Ping's Kuei water. The undulating protective black mist showed that the Jade Demon hadn't recovered from the impact of Lu Ping's spiritual fire wave. But seeing the Asura coming, it couldn't wait to cooperate with the Asura to kill Lu Ping. Without the help of the two great cultivators, Lu Ping seemed to be in a desperate situation when faced with a pincer attack from an Asura and a Jade Demon. However, in the face of such a situation, not only did Lu Ping not cower, he didn't even try to dodge the Asura's attack. Instead, he charged straight at the Jade Demon, exposing his back to the Asura that was chasing after him. What was he trying to do? Was he trying to drag someone down with him even though he knew he was going to die? However, just as the Asura's companion numinous treasure was about to pierce through Lu Ping's back, a slightly hunchbacked figure suddenly appeared several feet behind the Asura. Rich pure yang qi rose into the sky, and the majestic aura was like a giant mountain that supported the sky. The moment Lin Yu Laozu appeared, he was like the sun in the sky. He was destined to become the most dazzling existence in this battle. The moment Patriarch Lin Yu appeared, the Asura had already sensed what it meant for a pure yang cultivator to appear behind it. No one knew better than the Asura itself what it meant when a pure yang cultivator appeared behind it. Compared to killing the human cultivator in front of it, its own life was clearly more important. The Asura turned around in an instant. However, the moment it turned around, it had already protected the companion numinous treasure in its hand, which was far more powerful than a second tribulation numinous treasure. However, the pure yang human cultivator behind him seemed to have calculated every single detail of the Asura's reaction. He swung the jasper wind flute in his hand, and the distance of several tens of feet was crossed in the blink of an eye. The Asura had just turned around when it felt a sharp pain in its back. The jasper wind flute had already smashed into its back. The rich spiritual qi quickly dissipated. Although the Asura wouldn't vomit blood after being seriously injured, the sudden dissipation of this spiritual qi could greatly weaken Mara's combat power. It was no different from being seriously injured. Lin Yu Laozu sighed inwardly. The jasper wind flute was, after all, only a first tribulation numinous treasure. Moreover, it was not a numinous treasure that was good at direct contact. His strength was also greatly reduced when he was injured. Otherwise, even if he had a second tribulation numinous treasure in his hand, even if he couldn't kill the Azura, he would still be able to make it lose most of its combat power. Lin Yu Laozu wanted to attack again, but the Azura that had been sneakily attacked was already prepared. Lin Yu Laozu had already lost the best opportunity to severely injure the Azura again. At this moment, Hai Wuya, who was being beaten by another Azura, suddenly shouted. Lin Yu Laozu's expression changed. Hai Wuya had finally broken free from the restriction that Lin Yu Laozu had used on him using the divine telekinesis secret technique. Fortunately, the Azura didn't care whether Han Wuya was being controlled or not. It only focused on attacking him. Han Wuya couldn't escape from the Azura's fierce attacks for a while. However, when the Azura had beaten Han Wuya until he couldn't fight back, it suddenly retreated and charged towards Lin Yu Laozu. Although Lin Yu Laozu's strength had been damaged, he was a pure Yang Laozu after all. After severely injuring the Azura with a sneak attack, he immediately followed up with a series of attacks. Although he couldn't kill the Azura immediately, he beat it until it couldn't fight back. At this moment, the other Azura gave up on Han Wuya and charged towards Lin Yu Laozu. If Lin Yu Laozu was at his peak, facing two Azuras head-on would be a piece of cake for Lin Yu Laozu. However, at this moment, although he had taken some of the pills that Lu Ping had provided to temporarily suppress his injuries, he was still unable to face two Azuras that were seriously injured. Under the pincer attack of the two Azuras, Lin Yu Laozu was forced to retreat again and again, barely holding on. On the other side, after Han Wuya, who had been abandoned by the other Azura, regained control of his body, he unexpectedly didn't leave. This was because not far away from him, Huo Wuin, whose divine telekinesis was still sealed, was fighting desperately against the attack of the third Azura. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Han Wuya could not abandon his junior brother and retreat by himself. Left with no other choice, Han Wuya could only join the battle again and join forces with Huo Wuin to resist the Azura's attack. At this moment, Huo Wuin couldn't just be described as heavily injured. If his divine telekinesis had not been sealed by Lu Ping and Lin Yu Laozu's divine telekinesis secret technique, and he only knew how to fight with his life on the line, he most likely would have collapsed under the continuous attacks of the Azura. Han Wuya already hated Jinling and Lin Yu Laozu to the extreme. However, at this moment, he had no choice but to cooperate with Huo Wuin, who had lost his consciousness, to resist the attacks of the Azura. Fortunately, although Huo Wuin's consciousness had been sealed, the instincts of the wind and rain dual whips, which had worked together for hundreds of years, were still there. Although the two of them still couldn't resist the Azura's attacks, they could at least protect themselves for a short period of time. Han Wuya had already made up his mind. As long as he saw the right opportunity, he would escape with Huo Wuin. Although the Azura was fierce, it was not strong enough to stop the two of them from escaping unscathed. The only thing he had to consider was how to help Huo Wuin break free from Lin Yu Laozu's divine telekinesis seal. Perhaps he should find the right opportunity and forcibly take Huo Wuin away. Lin Yu Laozu was already in a difficult situation against the attacks of the two Azuras. If this continued, this itinerant pure Yang cultivator would probably become the first pure Yang Laozu to fall in the battle against Mara. At this critical moment, Lu Ping's thin stream sword finally arrived and took the injured Azura from Lin Yu Laozu's hands, relieving the pressure on Lin Yu Laozu. Not far away, the Jade Demon, whose protective black mist had been scattered by Lu Ping's divine thunderclap sword technique and Jade Phosphorus Soulfire, was thrown into chaos by the continuous attacks of the divine Yin Water Lightning and the Shadowless sword technique. In the end, it still couldn't avoid Lu Xiaoping's sneak attack on the back of its head. At this moment, although its body was still floating in the air, its body was slowly dissolving into dense spirit qi and then dissipating into the world. Chapter 1282. With Lin Yu Laozu's meticulous planning and Lu Ping's full cooperation, Jinling's side was able to barely maintain a stalemate despite the three Azuras going all out. However, both Lu Ping and Lin Yu Laozu knew that this stalemate wouldn't be maintained for too long. After all, Mara's side had the advantage in numbers. As time went on, their own side would be exhausted and the advantage would slowly return to Mara's side. Moreover, Lin Yu Laozu and Lu Ping could already see that Han Huia was planning to flee. Once he successfully escaped with Huo Wuing, the Azura would definitely launch a furious counterattack. At that time, Zhenling's side wouldn't be able to hold out for long before they were completely routed. Although the stalemate was short, and what Zhenling's sect needed was just one person to break the stalemate. Although the Devil Luo army had the advantage in numbers, the real deciding factor of the battle was the high-grade cultivators and the high-grade Devil Luo who were restraining each other. As long as one of these high-grade cultivators was free, they would immediately be able to reverse the situation. At that time, no matter how many Mara's army there was, it would be useless. By the same logic, if Mara's side was able to break the stalemate first, what awaited Zhenling would be a massacre and complete defeat. The only difference between the two was that if neither side was able to break the stalemate, Mara's army could rely on their advantage in numbers to slowly break the stalemate. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for Zhenling. The person that Lin Yu Laozu's meticulous plan to break the stalemate was none other than the cultivators that were still watching from the sidelines. In Lin Yu Laozu's view, when Zhenling was able to block the all-out attack of Mara's army, the cultivators that had been watching from afar should see an opportunity. Once they were able to take this opportunity to attack, Zhenling's crisis would immediately be resolved. Unfortunately, Lin Yu Laozu had overestimated these cultivators. Or rather, he hadn't expected that Han Huia, who was currently trying to break free from the great cultivators, would be able to escape. At this time, everyone could see that Han Huia was planning to flee. Although Huo Wuing was still somewhat muddle-headed after such a long battle, the secret technique that Lin Yu Laozu had placed on him was also weakening. Once Han Huia and Huo Wuing left the battle, who would dare to take over the vacant Azura? At this time, if anyone wanted to intervene in the battle, they would have to be prepared to receive a head-on attack from the Azura. Apart from pure Yang cultivators, who else had the strength and courage to block an enraged Azura? Even if both sides were not lacking, and there were great cultivators who could block the Azura together, why would they act as a shield for others? Could it be that when the time came, others would take the opportunity to kill their way into Mara's army and snatch battle merits? Due to this subtle state of mind, the cultivators who were watching the battle from the void far away from Zhenling's sect's encampment were reluctant to lend a hand. Since that was the case, they would wait until both sides were heavily injured before helping. At the very least, Zhenling's sect's encampment was not bad. When the time came, they would be able to reap the benefits while the Sandpiper and Clam fought. At this critical moment, a clear and crisp sound suddenly came from within Zhenling's camp. Near the camp's protective array disc, Black Fox sensed that something was amiss in the house of gold that Lu Ping had left beside him. Thus, he thought of what Lu Ping had told him before, and his eyes instantly lit up. Could it be Lu Qiner? Taoist mystic Fox hurriedly opened the spatial door of the house of gold. A strong gust of wind rolled up a pillar of fire and shot up into the sky. A beautiful greenish-red bird covered in raging flames emerged from the pillar of fire, bringing up a strong gust of wind. It soared into the sky and let out a series of cries that echoed for miles. What a good windfire blew Luan! It had actually managed to condense its Dharma power in such a short time and step into the Dharma phase in one fell swoop. Lu Qiner had been stuck at the 9th level of the core forging realm for a long time. However, under Lu Ping's repeated requests, she had never given up on tempering her cultivation base even though she did not have a suitable windfire dual attribute heaven rank spirit treasure. This was especially true after Lu Ping had given a Luan tier pearl to Lu Qiner. Lu Qiner had been cultivating day and night, absorbing and refining the aura left behind by the Luan Taoist. At this point, her foundation had already become exceptionally strong, and she was only missing one last opportunity. Coincidentally, at this time, Lu Ping had finally obtained the Windfire Jade Wall, a mid-grade heaven rank spirit treasure. This Windfire dual attribute heaven rank spirit treasure finally opened the floodgates for Lu Qiner's cultivation base to advance by leaps and bounds. Just as Zhenling and Mara's armies were in a stalemate, Lu Qinar finally succeeded in condensing her Dharma power. Although Lu Qinar's cultivation base was not too stable because she had just broken through to the Dharma phase, the current situation did not allow her to calm down and consolidate her cultivation base. After seeing the situation on the battlefield clearly, Lu Qinar resolutely rushed out of the Five Elements formation. Wu Yinglan, who had been staying in the camp and knocking on the Sea Bell replica magic treasure that Lu Ping had left for her, was stunned for a moment when she saw Lu Qinar turn into a streak of fire and rush out of the camp. Seeing the stalemate outside the camp, Wu Yinglan's expression changed continuously. In the end, she took out a white jade bottle from the storage magic treasure at her waist. Finally, as if she had made up her mind, she took out a vermilion pellet from the jade bottle, then raised her head and swallowed it. The moment Lu Qinar rushed out of the camp, Lu Tianyuan suddenly abandoned Chan Yu and Chan Xiang and flew back. Chan Yu and Chan Xiang had to face the joint attack of a Jade Shura and a Jade Demon with their own strength. At the same time, they also had to hold back the Blood Shura that had been cooperating with the two Jade Mara, so that it could not chase after Lu Tianyuan. They also had to deal with the attacks of many big and small Mara. The situation suddenly fell into a disadvantage, and the two sisters could only barely hold on for a moment. Lu Qinar's sudden rush out and Lu Tianyuan's instant retreat caused a ripple in the situation for a moment. Then, the two of them simultaneously rushed towards Tian Tian, who was relying on the defense formation of the camp and had to cooperate with the Tao soldier formation behind him from time to time to barely resist the attacks of the two Blood Shura. The two Blood Shura obviously realized the danger of the situation. One of the Blood Shura immediately rushed back, trying to stop Lu Tianyuan. However, it underestimated Lu Tianyuan's strength. As Zhenling's current third-generation disciple, it could be said that he was second only to Lu Ping. The strength of Lu Tianyuan, who had refined the Dharma Power Soul, was not so easily blocked by a Blood Shura. Moreover, at this time, Zhenling had reached the point where he had to fight with his life on the line. In the midst of a loud bang, under the Blood Shura's terrified gaze, Lu Tianyuan, whose mouth was bleeding, had actually managed to gain the upper hand in this collision and forced the Blood Shura to retreat. Behind it, Tian Tian and Lu Qinar, who had rushed up to attack together, had already completely suppressed the other Blood Shura. The strength that Lu Qinar had displayed was also secretly shocking. This was not a demonic practitioner who had just broken through to the Dharma Law stage. This level of strength was completely not below that of Tian Tian, who had been immersed in the early Dharma Law stage for many years. At this moment, Ji Tianxian, who had been presiding over the Dao soldier formation with Li Xuanru, suddenly left the formation. The entire operation of the Dao soldier formation was completely placed on Li Tianru alone, causing the emergency efficiency of the Dao soldier formation to suddenly drop. The Mara army that had surrounded the encampment formation suddenly went berserk. The color of the protective formation shield changed rapidly, as if it was about to be broken in the next moment. At the place where the matrix plate was located, Black Fox directed several matrix masters to replace all the top-grade spirit stones that had been embedded in the matrix plate in a short period of time. At the same time, Ling Long, who was suppressing the 5-element ring, suddenly let out a buzzing sound. Black Fox saw a thick stream of blue yuan qi continuously flow into the 5-element ring under her feet. The 5-element ring, which had originally been constantly flickering, immediately stabilized. Black Fox and the other Matrix Masters did not hesitate to replace dozens of top-grade spirit stones in succession. The protective formation of the encampment finally held up under the frenzied siege of Mara's army, but this situation obviously could not be maintained for too long. However, maintaining it for only a moment was enough. Ji Tianxian killed his way out of the encampment, and under the protection of several puppets, he instantly charged into the battle between Lu Qinar and Tian Tian. Caught off guard, the Blood Shura, who had been suppressed by the two of them together, was immediately severely injured by Ji Tianxuan's puppets. Two of the three puppets that Ji Tianxian had carefully refined, which were close to the Dharma stage, were destroyed in an instant. Ji Tianxuan's task was accomplished, and he could not care less about his puppets. He turned and retreated back into the encampment formation. Without him presiding over it, Li Tianru could not command the 3 talents 5 elements Dao soldier formation alone. If Black Fox and the other Matrix Masters had not reacted in time, it was likely that Mara army, who had relaxed their suppression, would have just broken through the encampment formation. Just after Ji Tianxian had severely injured the Blood Shura at the cost of 2 Dharma puppets, under the joint attack of Tian Tian and Lu Qina, it was only a matter of time before the Blood Shura died. However, they were fighting for time. More than 1,000 feet away, Huo Wuyin finally began to recover from his previous muddle-headed state. Despite the double seal of Lu Ping and Lin Yu Laozu, in order to enable Huo Wuyin to fight, Lu Ping had previously released the seal on his core space. However, this also left Huo Wuyin with a breakthrough to finally dispel Lin Yu Laozu's secret technique. However, these were all things that could not be helped. After awakening, Huo Wuyin naturally wouldn't fight against the Azuras anymore. However, he was already heavily injured, so he couldn't find a way to shake off the Azuras with Han Wuya. However, such an opportunity wasn't too difficult for the 2 great cultivators to deal with. Tian Tian gritted his teeth and suddenly thought of the Blood Shura, who had been seriously injured. He rushed over and took a blow from the Blood Shura's accompanying spiritual treasure to stall the Blood Shura. Lu Qina was taken aback, but she naturally would not let go of this opportunity that Tian Tian had exchanged for by risking his injury. Her wings crisscrossed and slashed out, a flame slash and a wind spirit kill. The Blood Shura's body suddenly turned into 3 pieces and fell from the air. Chapter 1283. Tian Tian and Lu Qina could have defeated the Blood Shura in front of them without suffering any losses. However, in order to buy time, Tian Tian resolutely used a brutal method. He paid the price of being seriously injured in exchange for Lu Qina successfully killing the Blood Shura, just to buy time. After killing the Blood Shura, Tian Tian and Lu Qina immediately jumped toward the Blood Shura that was fighting with Lu Tianyuan. Although Lu Tianyuan had suffered some injuries in the previous fight, it was because of his previous momentum that he did not hesitate to injure himself that Lu Tianyuan had the upper hand in the battle with the Blood Shura. What Lu Tianyuan lacked was a Class 1 Calamity Spirit Treasure. Once he had a suitable spirit treasure, his strength would even surpass many of the heirs of the same level who were born in famous sects and holy lands. Defeating the Blood Mara would be a piece of cake. Under the siege of the 3, the Blood Shura naturally could not hold on for too long. Soon, it was beheaded by Tian Tian. The 3 of them did not dare to take a breather. They jumped toward the battle where Laozu of Tianshan was fighting. At this time, Laozu of Tianshan was fighting with a Jade Shura and 2 Azuras. Although he had a Class 2 Calamity Spirit Treasure, the Mountain-Splitting Axe, he was at a disadvantage in front of the joint siege of the 3 Shuras. However, Laozu of Tianshan's Earth Attribute Cultivation method was excellent, so he could use the Earth Element Real Body to withstand the siege of the 3 Shuras. Lu Tianyuan and the other 2 suddenly joined the fray, but the 3 of them weren't fighting against the 2 Blood Shura that were supporting them. They were fighting against the Jade Shura, who was taking up most of the Tianshan elders' attention. Lu Tianyuan, Tian Tian, and Lu Qina, who had just condensed a Dharma, worked together. The 3 of them did not have a spirit treasure, but they were fighting a Jade Shura. As soon as the battle began, under the attack of the Jade Shura's accompanying spirit treasure, Tian Tian's face changed. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dirty blood, but he still rushed forward with a ferocious look. The 3 of them worked together to block the Jade Shura, but the situation was very bad. Obviously, every time the 3 of them fought the Jade Shura, it was a kind of torture on the edge of life and death. But when Laozu of Tianshan saw the 3 of them join the battle, he left immediately. He did not dare to ignore the 3 of them. The mountain-splitting axe flew out, turned into an arc, and cut off half the shoulder of the Blood Shura that had been harassing the Jade Shura the most. The other Blood Shura saw that Laozu of Tianshan was looking at it, so it turned around and ran away. The current Mo Luo really seemed to have changed a lot. He was not as fearless as he used to be, but he was more cunning and intelligent. Lao Zu of Tianshan did not have time to chase after the blood Shura that had escaped. Instead, he turned around and ran towards Lu Ping, who was fighting an injured Azura. But at this time, something happened on the battlefield. When Lin Yu, Lao Zu, Lu Ping, and the others saw that Lu Qiner had suddenly advanced to the Dharma stage, their eyes brightened. Even though the practitioners who were watching from the sidelines were still unwilling to help, if Lu Qiner cooperated well, she, a small early Dharma adept, might be the key to breaking the situation. However, when Lu Qiner joined the battle, Huo Wuin had completely woken up. Although the two of them were still being chased by the Azuras who did not know what was going on, it was only a matter of time before they could escape. At this time, even Lin Yu, Lao Zu, was a little impatient. He said to the people around him, "My friends who are watching the battle, if you don't help now, when will you? With Zhenling and the others holding back Mara's army, as long as you help us, we will definitely win this battle. You will also be able to earn a lot of battle credits, and it will not be impossible for you to enter the 7th Patriarch's altar in the future." A low, cold laugh came from the void. Who will fight the Azuras? If we help now, we can certainly win, but what if we wait until both of you are injured? Fellow Taoist Zhenling, please hold on a little longer. This way, it will be safer for us to help. Don't worry, as long as you continue to fight, we will not just watch as Mara's army opens up this passage. But if you are defeated for no reason, it will mean that you deliberately abandon this place. This crime will not be easy for your sect to bear, will it? I heard that your sect recently wanted to become a large sect. If you let Mara's army escape from under your eyes, even the Supreme Profound sect and the Huda sect suffered a great loss at your hands. How impressive! How come you can't even defend this passage now? This place should have originally belonged to a large sect. A medium-sized sect from a remote and desolate place actually wants to occupy such a treasured place. They really deserve it. These voices were all strange, and it was obvious that they had deliberately distorted their voices. Moreover, each of their voices was abnormally fleeting, obviously not wanting others to discover their identity and hiding place. Zhenling was about to explode from these people's words, but at this critical moment of life and death, he could only endure it. Lin Yu Laozu's face immediately darkened. Although he was a pure young cultivator and one of the 13 initiators of the world's sect's encirclement against Mara's army, he was still not taken seriously by those cultivators. Although they did not dare to offend him on the surface, they secretly disdained him. Moreover, Lin Yu Laozu was obviously injured at this time. Otherwise, how could he only be in a stalemate with an Azura until now? Lin Yu Laozu did not say anything more. He knew that no matter how much he said, these people would not help him, and it would only make him a laughing stock. At this time, to be able to make a pure young cultivator lose face in front of them, who knew how many people's dark hearts would be satisfied. At this time, Han Weia and Huo Wuin finally found an opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment when the Azura's attention was suddenly attracted by Lao Zu of Tianshan's escape, the wind and rain whip took the opportunity to stir up the wind and rain. The two great cultivators had already escaped from the Azura's entanglement and retreated a few hundred feet away. However, Huo Wuin's strength had been greatly damaged, and just as the two of them retreated, he was still hit by the Azura. Although Han Weia had tried his best to protect him, Huo Wuin still spat out a mouthful of blood, and the aura around him continued to drop. He was now no different from a mid-Dharma adept. After this battle, Huo Wuin's cultivation base had not only been severely damaged by Lu Ping, but it was also very likely that his cultivation base would fall by another level. Zhenling Lu Tianping, Lin Yu, you old dog, I will remember today's gift. We have a long way to go in the future. At this time, Lu Ping did not care about Huo Wuin's harsh words. The Azura that had been shaken off by the two of them was already charging towards Zhenling and the others. Chapter 1284. With Huo Wuin and Han Weia's sudden retreat, the advantage that Zhenling had gained from Lu Qiner's advancement to the Transcendence realm was gone. The Azura, which had lost its opponent, immediately charged at Zhenling's group. Zhenling was about to be slaughtered by the enraged Azura. On the other side, Tian Tian, Lu Tianyuan, and Lu Qiner were being suppressed by a Jade Shura. The Blood Shura that had escaped earlier had returned. The three of them were under even more pressure, and it was only a matter of time before they collapsed. Laozu of Tianshan, who had finally managed to free his hand, looked at Lu Tianyuan and the other two, who were almost at their limits. He then looked at the Azura that was charging at him. The mountain-splitting axe in his hand, which was about to attack the Azura that was fighting Lu Ping, was enveloped by a thick yellow Zhenyuan. Laozu of Tianshan knew that he couldn't stop the Azura with his own strength, but under such circumstances, he had no choice but to give it his all. Otherwise, Zhenling would die even faster. But just as Laozu of Tianshan was about to attack, he saw Tian Fan and Tian Shui of Laozu suddenly abandon the two Jade Mara that were fighting and join forces to attack the Azura. Behind them, the two Jade Shura were already chasing after them with a sinister smile. Laozu of Tianshan was shocked. He shouted, "Be careful!" The mountain-splitting axe in his hand had already flown out of his hand to slash at the last Jade Shura. In a moment of desperation, even if Laozu of Tianshan had 3 heads and 6 arms, he could only throw the mountain-splitting axe. The last Jade Shura hurriedly turned around to block, but under Laozu of Tianshan's sudden attack, the companion spiritual treasure in its hand was almost sent flying. Even so, the Jade Shura was still chasing after the two of them. The Azura's attack was finally blocked by Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu of Tianshan. However, the two of them were instantly sent flying by the Azura. In mid-air, the Jade Shura, who had caught up from behind, laughed strangely. It took the opportunity to attack Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu. At this moment, Tian Fan and Old Ancestor Heavenly Snow had just suffered a blow from one of their Azuras, causing their blood and qi to churn. Even now, their true energy was barely replenished, so how could they defend against this sneak attack from behind? At this critical moment, Tian Fan Laozu extended his hand and pushed Tian Shui Laozu, who was beside him. Tian Shui Laozu was sent flying dozens of meters away. As for Tian Fan Laozu, he had taken the Jade Shura's attack head-on. Before he could stabilize himself in mid-air, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Tian Fan. Tian Shui Laozu was like a crazed demon. Without waiting for her body to stabilize in mid-air, the Zhen Yuan in her body reversed. She couldn't care less about the damage to her body. She turned into an arc in mid-air, rushing towards Tian Fan Laozu. However, Tian Fan Laozu, who had been heavily injured by the Jade Shura's sneak attack, didn't die. However, just as Tian Shui Laozu was rushing over, Tian Fan Laozu's life force was being depleted at a visible speed. Tian Shui Laozu's crazed state immediately woke up. Immediately, her face was filled with panic. However, before she could get close, Tian Fan Laozu, whose clothes were stained with blood and was heavily injured, had already rushed back. The spiritual fan in his hand had already created a strong wind, temporarily repelling the Jade Shura that had injured him. He didn't look like someone who had been injured before. Tian Shui Laozu had already reunited with Tian Fan Laozu. Tian Shui Laozu stared at Tian Fan Laozu blankly. Her mouth was saying, She was so shocked that she couldn't say anything. Tian Fan Laozu laughed. At this time, we have to block it. But you will die. We can't care about that anymore. Otherwise, more people will die. The Azura rushed over again. Tian Fan Laozu shook the spiritual fan in his hand and said, Come on. If we can't block it, we will still die. The Jade Shura, who had been temporarily repelled, rushed forward again. Although Tian Fan Laozu had used a strange secret technique to suppress his injuries and become even stronger than before, they were still beaten miserably by the Azura despite working together with Tian Shui Laozu. However, they were still able to hold back the Azura. However, at this time, if the Jade Shura rushed forward again, even if Tian Shui Laozu used the same secret technique, he would still be defeated. However, before the Jade Shura could rush over, a huge palm suddenly came from the side. In a moment of desperation, the Jade Shura used the spiritual treasure in front of her to block the palm. A huge force entered her body, and the Jade Shura was sent flying again. However, this kind of force was obviously unable to cause any damage to her. The owner of the giant hand screamed. There was a giant wound, and it was bleeding. A giant brown bear stood up, and the wounded bear monster ran at Jade Shura. Jade Shura was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. She was shocked. In the Jinling camp, the pale Wu Yinglan looked at the bear demon that was rushing toward her. Her lips curled into a smile, and she said, "I tried my best." Then she fainted on the ground. The practitioners of the spirit beast taming sect were usually in cahoots with murderers. However, for a practitioner of the spirit beast taming sect to be able to control a ferocious beast of the same level as him as his natal beast, it was already an impressive feat. For example, the Empyrean walker of the spirit beast taming sect, Sang Yu, was now a mid-dharma adept, and his natal beast was also a primordial fierce crocodile that had just entered the mid-dharma adept not long ago. Sang Yu himself relied on this primordial fierce crocodile that was born from a top-level demon clan to firmly occupy the first position among the Empyrean walkers of the spirit beast taming sect. Although Wu Yinglan was only at the early Dharma stage, her father was the previous Empyrean walker of the spirit beast taming sect, and he was now a great practitioner. Because he was worried that his daughter would encounter danger outside, he used the secret techniques of the spirit beast taming sect to allow his daughter to control a mid-dharma brown bear demon, so that she could summon it to save her life in times of danger. However, summoning this mid-dharma ferocious beast was obviously not an easy task for Wu Yinglan. Normally, it would have been easier if her abilities had not been damaged, but now that her divine will had been damaged by the sneak attack of the blood demon, she could no longer hold on after summoning this bear demon. She only had time to give an order to attack the Jade Shura before she fainted on the ground. Although this bear demon was at the mid-dharma stage, it was only an ordinary ferocious beast. Naturally, it could not compare to the bloodline of a top-level demon like the primordial fierce crocodile that Sang Yu controlled. Similarly, it could not be a match for the Jade Shura. However, ferocious beasts did not have spiritual intelligence. Once they encountered an opponent, they would fight to the death. Although the Jade Shura's abilities were above the bear demon, it was impossible for her to defeat the opponent before her in a short period of time. Wu Yinglan's summoning this time could be said to be a life-saving move. At least, it delayed the eventual defeat of Jinling. Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozu, were already prepared to die. Tian Fan Laozu even used a secret technique to overdraft his own life force in exchange for stabilizing his injuries and temporarily increasing his abilities. However, in the face of absolute power, the two of them could only be sent flying by the Azura again and again, but they stubbornly charged forward again and again. Every time they faced the Azura's attack, Tian Fan Laozu would do his best to block it at the very front. Almost every time he received an attack from the Azura, Tian Fan Laozu would spit out a mouthful of blood. However, the cultivators hidden in the surrounding void still did not lend a helping hand. Lin Yu Laozu was persevering, Tian Shan Laozu was also persevering, and Xie Tianyang had tried his best to rush out to help, but he was always surrounded by the Jade Shura and Blood Mara. Su Jin had already tried his best, but at most, he could only lure the Blood Shura that was attacking Lu Tianyuan and the other two. After Chan Yu and Chan Xiang lost Lu Tianyuan's support, they were already overwhelmed by the harassment from the two Jade Shuras and the other Mara around them. When Sang Yu saw Wu Yinglan summon the demon bear, his eyes had already turned bloodshot. He knew what it meant for Wu Yinglan to summon such a ferocious beast that far surpassed her own cultivation when her will was injured. However, although he had suppressed the Jade Shura in front of him, when faced with the Mara army that was about to surround them, Sang Yu was clearly powerless. At this moment, Lu Ping had already forgotten about the commotion that might be caused by the appearance of the two halves spiritual treasures. Now, he only wanted to use the pure Yang spiritual treasure to defeat the Azura in front of him. However, an Azura was an Azura after all. Even if it was injured, its strength was still above Lu Ping's. For Lu Ping to be able to block an injured Azura was already beyond everyone's expectations. At this moment, he still wanted to turn defeat into victory. However, under the Azura's suppression, how could Lu Ping have the time and energy to accumulate his true qi to summon the pure Yang spiritual treasure? Pooh! Under the Azura's continuous attacks, Even though Tian Fan Laozu had deliberately blocked most of the attacks, Tian Shui Laozu was still heavily injured and vomited blood. The rage in Lu Ping's heart soared. It was as if there was a raging flood that was gushing out recklessly. However, no matter how hard it tried, it was unable to find an outlet. The flood accumulated within his body, and Lu Ping felt as if his entire body was swelling up, to the point where it was about to explode. Within his core space, a handkerchief was flickering with 7 colors of light. Line after line of words appeared on the surface of the handkerchief. Battle of the Icy Plains, a matter of Xiantian. For you, I will kill my way through this world, only death awaits. The light on the handkerchief condensed and finally condensed on the first sentence, Battle of the Icy Plains. The dragon avatar's eyes were wide open. That pair of eyes that originally had a trace of blood red within the greenish-gold color was now glowing with a bright red light. The word battle seemed to have left the handkerchief and was deeply imprinted in the dragon avatar's eyes. Battle! 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 A purplish-gold-colored auspicious cloud rose from behind Lu Ping's back like a beacon that soared into the sky. Before the sword of true spirit could fly out from the top of Lu Ping's head, he had already grabbed it in his hand. Wielding the sword of true spirit, Lu Ping's eyes were flickering with greenish-red light with a trace of gold. His entire body was filled with battle intent, like a dam that had burst. He was waiting for the sword of true spirit to fly out and slash open a hole on the opponent in front of him. Chapter 1285. Fight, fight, fight. The sword chi emitted by the sword of true spirit was similar to the purple-gold clouds behind it. With every slash of sword chi, the purple-gold clouds would transform into a purple-gold dragon with the body of a snake, the claws of an eagle, the legs of a crocodile, the ears of a cow, the whiskers of a fish, and the mane of a horse. In midair, it could even let out a loud roar as it pounced towards the Azura in front of Lu Ping. This was not the green serpent disturbing the sea's sword technique. Instead, Lu Ping was evolving the word fight written by Jiao Daoren. What he was evolving was not only the sword technique but also the aura, the charm, and the heroic spirit of fighting against millions of people. Jiao Daoren's handwriting, the heaven-splitting legacy, the sword of true spirit, and the anger in Lu Ping's heart were all released with this word fight. An Azura and a mid-Dharma adept. Despite the great disparity in their levels of cultivation, they were still on equal footing. But now, with the 3-sword chi of the dragon moving back and forth, the Azura was actually retreating. Retreating again and again. Even the Azura's expression was one of shock, one after another, until it was fear. The 3 strange-looking dragons gave the Azura a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart. It was as if the moment they appeared, they were able to produce a strange resonance with the source of heaven and earth. Even their appearance seemed so natural, as if they were late. The strange thing about the 3 strange dragons was that no one had ever seen them appear. However, they had never seemed out of place in this world. On the contrary, the strangeness that came from the unfamiliarity quickly disappeared, as if they were immediately recognized by those who had seen them from the inside out. This kind of aura was terrifying to the Azura, strange to the others, but to Linyu Laozu, it was shocking. As a pure yang cultivator, he had a more accurate understanding of this world. This kind of understanding might only be instinctive to others, but Linyu Laozu knew that this feeling came from the recognition of the natural source of the world. He had personally witnessed such a thing before. They were the Qianquan wine cauldron that Earth Spirit Sun summoned during the battle of Luo Xen Mountain and the heavenly sword technique that Xiao Baiyu used to break the 5 elements. One of them was one of the 6 artifacts that participated in opening the heavens, while the other was the heavenly sword technique that Jiao Daoren left behind when he opened up the East Sea cultivation world. Heaven and earth were created by them, so it was naturally easier for them to obtain the approval of the origin of heaven and earth. The heaven-defying swordsmanship that Lu Ping used at this time could only be of the same type, which was that this swordsmanship had been used in the process of opening the sky. It was the same as the swordsmanship that Xiao Baiyu practiced. It was the genuine heaven-opening swordsmanship. Everyone was shocked by Lu Ping's sword technique, and Lin Yu Laozu was shocked that Lu Ping also knew heavenly sword technique. However, everyone ignored the flying sword that Lu Ping controlled. It was only a first tribulation spirit treasure, so it naturally would not attract the attention of others. However, Lu Ping knew that only through the sword of true spirit could he unleash the power of his divine swordsmanship to suppress the Asuras. 3 dragons, dragon battle in the wild. In an instant, Lu Ping had already grasped the essence of the heavenly sword technique. However, even though Lu Ping's heaven opening technique could turn the tables on the Asura in an instant, he still couldn't kill an Asura in a short period of time, even if it was an injured Asura. At this moment, did Tian Fan and Tian Shui still have the time to wait? Lu Ping's heart was bleeding. How could he not know what kind of secret technique Tian Fan Laozu was using? This method of consuming vitality to suppress his injuries to increase his strength, there was only one result. After this battle, Tian Fan Laozu's fate was to fall. However, at this moment, it was not only Tian Fan Laozu. Lu Ping's divine sense covered the entire battlefield. At this moment, the one who could not hold on was Tian Tian. Tian Tian, who was already injured, had no choice but to fight it head-on to prevent the blood Asura that Laozu had chased away from coming back to harass him. He was now an arrow at the end of its flight. If it wasn't for Tian Tian Laozu luring the blood Asura away and Lu Tianyuan using his full strength to block the majority of the Jade Asura's attack, perhaps Tian Tian would not have been able to hold on. Although the Asura was temporarily suppressed by Lu Ping's heavenly sword technique, it seemed to understand Lu Ping's thoughts. In an instant, it actually began to defend with all its strength. And this type of defense was very familiar to Lu Ping. It was entanglement. It used all of Lu Ping's skills to entangle itself. Lu Ping had covered the entire battlefield with his divine sense. However, at this moment, whether it was the Netherwater Sword or his avatar, they were unable to provide any help to the cultivators from the same sect outside of the battle. This occupation was not only noticed by Lu Ping, but also by the Asura. At this moment, the one who could not be delayed was Zhenling. This time, Tian Fan Laozu finally could not hold on any longer under the Asura's attacks. He consumed all his vitality in exchange for suppressing his injuries and increasing his strength. However, under the absolute suppression of strength, he was ultimately unable to withstand such a situation where he was heavily injured. After the Asura sent the 2 of them flying for the 5th time, the Skysoul ancestor finally could not even spit out blood anymore. He did his best to turn his pale white face around, wanting to say something to the Sky Snow ancestor beside him. However, his lips moved, but nothing came out in the end. Instead, his eyes began to glaze over. Tian Shui Laozu was instantly stunned. Even when the Asura had already caught up to them and the companion's spiritual treasure in its hand was already above Tian Shui Laozu, she did not notice it at all. "Senior uncle, be careful. Senior uncle, be careful." One by one, Zhenling's disciples cried out. However, at this moment, Tian Shui Laozu was like a fool, not moving at all. She only looked at Tian Fan Laozu, who no longer had any vitality left. Defeated. Zhenling is finally going to be defeated. Has that female cultivator gone stupid? Wouldn't it be good if she could resist for a while? This Asura has yet to exhaust much of its strength. If she were to interfere in the battle, it would be a huge problem. Her Dao companion is already dead. From the looks of it, the 2 of them were deeply in love. At this moment, she doesn't even care about her own life. Since she doesn't want it, it would be good if she self-destructed. It's chaotic. The aura around her body is chaotic. If she isn't possessed by the devil, then she is going to self-destruct. As expected, she is going to self-destruct. That's great. This Asura is so pleased with itself. If she were to self-destruct at this distance, there's an 80 to 90% chance that she wouldn't be able to dodge it. It would be enough for her to suffer. Why don't we attack after she self-destructs? Hee. Are you eyeing that Asura's battle merit points? Do you think that you are Lu Tianping? That you can deal with a heavily injured Asura by yourself? Even that Lu Tianping is being held there by that Asura and can't do anything about it, right? The cultivators who were hiding in the void around them were still excitedly communicating with each other through divine thoughts. All of a sudden, it was as if they had lost their voices. However, very quickly, a series of curses could be heard. How did this person come out? He actually dared to use spatial magic on the battlefield. Who the fuck is this? He's not following the rules. He's looking for death. He can actually stop that female cultivator from self-destructing. Fuck, he's only at the late Dharma stage and he can actually block that Asura. Who is this person? Who is it? Very quickly, a wave of gloating divine thoughts was shared. Io, he's been sent flying. I knew it. Serves him right. He's overestimating himself. A great cultivator actually dares to fight with an Asura one-on-one. Does he think that he is Xiao Baiyu? No. Oh my god. That fellow stood up as if nothing happened. He went back up again. Is he still human? Strange, this is strange. How can this person's fleshly body be so strong? Wasn't the pure yang lightning tribulation just like an itch to him? In an instant, the divine thoughts in the air seemed to have sunk into silence. Just when Tian Shui Laozu was determined to die and wanted to take the opportunity to self-destruct, a great cultivator with a blurry face calmly opened up a spatial door in the midst of the turbulent battlefield. Allowing the turbulent space to tear his body apart, he appeared beside Tian Shui Laozu. Oh, it seems like I'm not too late. Following that, the old man seemed to have sensed the turbulence of the spiritual energy around him. His emotionless gaze swept across Tian Shui Laozu. After that, he pointed a finger at the back of Tian Shui Laozu's shoulder. Old ancestor Heavenly Snow, who was about to self-detonate his true essence and had already fallen into an uncontrollable state, suddenly fainted. Then, the turbulent aura around him immediately calmed down. Old ancestor Heavenly Snow's self-detonation had actually been contained. The Asura's attacks came one after another. However, the old man actually managed to block the killing blow that was originally aimed at Tian Shui Laozu, causing the Asura to be momentarily stunned. However, very quickly, the Asura launched another attack. This time, the old man was finally unable to block it. Or perhaps it was because the old man was distracted, he pushed the unconscious Tian Shui Laozu and the fallen Tian Fan Laozu into the encampment a few hundred zhang away. After that, he was sent flying by the Asura's powerful attack. However, a shocking scene occurred. After the old man was sent flying by the Asura, his fleshly body didn't suffer any injuries. He actually patted the dust off his body and stood up once again. This time, it wasn't just the cultivators from the various sects who were secretly watching the battle, even the two sides that were fighting on the battlefield were shocked. Just how condensed was this person's physical body to be able to withstand an Asura's attack without being injured? Only Lu Tianping's morale was greatly boosted when the old man appeared. The sword of true spirit let out a long cry. After suppressing the Asura, Lu Ping was finally able to accumulate his Zhenyuan and unleash an even more powerful attack. However, since the old man had appeared, Lu Ping naturally wouldn't expose the fact that the pure yang spiritual treasure was split into two. Following the trembling of the spiritual treasure moly, a roar that seemed to originate from ancient times came from the purplish-gold auspicious cloud behind Lu Ping, revealing the true appearance of the pure yang spiritual treasure. All this while, this was the first time Lu Ping had revealed his source Dharma idol in front of everyone. After the old man blocked the Asura, Lu Ping knew that the most critical moment had passed. However, this didn't mean that Zhenling could win for sure. On the contrary, this was just another delay in the outbreak of danger. This time, the Dharma idol dragon didn't show its head but not its tail in the Dharma idol auspicious cloud. Instead, it pounced into the battle the moment it was summoned by Lu Ping. The three sword lights of the sword of true spirit, dragon fighting in the wild, merged with the Dharma idol dragon the moment the Dharma idol dragon appeared. Not only did the sword of opening heaven not weaken, it became even more powerful. The Asura was already at a disadvantage when Lu Ping used the sword of true spirit to perform the sword of opening heaven. Now that Lu Ping used the Dharma idol dragon to control the sword of opening heaven, its power was even greater. However, in order to entangle Lu Ping with all its strength, the Asura had gathered all of Lu Ping's techniques other than swordsmanship. In other words, Lu Ping was not only dealing with the sword of opening heaven. At this time, the Asura's previous actions had completely become a trap of its own making. Although the spiritual treasure in the Asura's hands was not comparable to a pure yang spiritual treasure, it was much stronger than a second tribulation spiritual treasure. However, under the combination of the Dharma idol dragon and the sword of true spirit, it was sent flying the moment the two sides came into contact. Then the Asura's body flashed and dodged to the side. However, it was inevitable that the sword of true spirit would cut open a wound on its shoulder. However, Lu Ping's methods had always been like a flood. The sword of true spirit missed, and Lu Xiaoping appeared again. The green willow sword was pointing in the direction the Asura was dodging. But after all, Asuras were existences on the same level as pure yang cultivators. Even if Lu Ping had the upper hand, he still had to make sure his attacks were relentless in order to kill an Asura. He couldn't afford to give the Asura any chance to catch its breath. The Asura swung its hand, and a spiritual light turned into a sharp wind. Like a slap, it slapped Lu Xiaoping 30 feet away. However, the Asura was too slow, and the torrent of sword techniques had already swept the Asura. The Asura stretched out its hand to summon the spiritual treasure. At the same time, it tried its best to resist the attack of the great river flows east. However, in the blink of an eye, it saw that the strange dragon had already opened its mouth in the torrent of sword techniques. The Asura's eyes turned black, and it struggled to break free. However, it was all in vain. In an unknown place, the Asura's eyes were pitch black. It opened its mouth and let out a roar, wanting to ask for help, but no sound came out of its mouth. It struggled in all directions, wanting to touch something, but to no avail. The only thing it could feel was that its consciousness seemed to be fading away, and then completely falling into endless darkness. That Lu Tianping actually killed the Asura. How is this possible? Is he using the legendary Heaven Opening Sword technique? Since when did the Heaven Opening Sword technique become so worthless? Purple Sun Palace has it, Xiao Baiyu has it, and now Lu Tianping has it too. What is that Dharma form of his? Is it the Dharma form of a dragon? Why is it so strange? Is there some mystery behind it? That's not the problem now. The problem is whether we should fight. Lu Tianping killed the Asura. With his strength, he can completely break the stalemate. If we don't go out and fight for the battle merits now, I'm afraid that all of them will fall into Zhenling's hands. For a time, the cultivators who had been watching from the sidelines fell into a strange silence again. This was a situation they had thought of before, but for some reason, they could not make up their minds now. This Lu Tianping, 3 or 4 voices rang out at the same time, and then everyone fell silent. Everyone knew that the reason for their hesitation was because of Lu Tianping. This was a demon. This was an existence that could even kill Asuras when he was at the mid-Dharma stage. His strange Dharma power, his unparalleled swordsmanship, and his unbelievably powerful inner Yuan cultivation all showed that he was no less powerful than Xiao Baiyu. He might even be more difficult to deal with than Xiao Baiyu had been all those years ago. After today's battle, many of the cultivators who were watching knew that their sects had greatly offended Zhenling. If it was just a Zhenling sect, it would be fine. Even if it became a large sect in the future, so what? Could it come to the Central Plains to settle scores after the fall? But if this sect produced another person like Xiao Baiyu, damn it, let's do it. It'll be a waste if we don't snatch it. There are so many people here today. Is he going to make things difficult for everyone in the future? It's a free reward. Doesn't anyone want to enter the 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform? The 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform. Everyone's hearts burned with passion when they thought about the place where the 7th Patriarch would teach. Settling scores after the fall and taking revenge in the future was nothing compared to the 7th Patriarch's Taoist platform. Zhenling, don't panic. I'm Yu Lu from the Xiaoxiang sect. I'm here to lend you a hand. I'm Mo Fan from the Snow Mountain sect. Han Yu from the Tangshan sect. Stars from the Yunpan Mountain sect. Zhou Ruoxi from the Feiyun Pavilion. As soon as Lu Ping killed the Azura, more than 10 rays of light rushed toward the battlefield from a few kilometers away from Zhenling's base like meteors. Lu Ping let out a cold laugh and said in a low voice, "Snatching the rewards? I hope you won't snatch them from me." Chapter 1286. Just as Lu Ping surprised everyone by killing the Azura, the cultivators who had been hiding in the surrounding void and watching from the sidelines all rushed towards Zhenling's base as if they had discussed it beforehand. At the same time, they were shouting and announcing their sects, and at the same time, they were waving the flag of helping Zhenling. These people were fast enough, but at this time, Lu Ping had to think of ways to be faster, because Zhenling had already lost 2 first-generation mid-Dharma adepts, 1 dead and 1 seriously injured, in order to defend the base. Lu Ping did not want to lose another senior at this time. Faced with the Jade Shura's continuous attacks, Lu Tianyuan's power was getting stronger and stronger, but Tian's injuries were getting worse. Fortunately, the 3 of them were working together to block the Jade Shura in front of them, but at this time, another Blood Shura came running towards them. Tian once again blocked the Blood Shura's attack, but the Jade Shura immediately seized the opportunity, using the companion spiritual treasure in her hand to far exceed that of Lu Tianyuan and the others, and directly attacked at close range. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner used all their strength to block the attack, but Tian was already at the end of his rope. The treasure in his hand and the companion spiritual treasure collided and broke, and Tian himself was sent flying. Naturally, the Jade Shura would not let go of this opportunity to attack them one by one. While Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had not recovered from the previous attack, the Jade Shura was already rushing towards Tian. Seeing that Tian's life was about to be lost, a sword Chi dragon roared and rushed over first. The Jade Shura saw that the situation was not good, and immediately turned to escape. This was the sword of opening the heavens, which could even kill Azuras. Although the Jade Shura did not know what the sword of opening the heavens was, it knew that the person who used this sword skill had killed Azura before. The Jade Shura turned to escape, but at this time, Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had already calmed the fluctuating inner yuan in their bodies, and the 2 of them saw this opportunity and immediately blocked it. Lu Ping saw this, and his true spirit sword swept across. The Jade Shura's arm, which was holding the companion spiritual treasure, was torn off by the sword Chi dragon. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner took the opportunity to attack the Jade Shura when it was down, and the Jade Shura died in Lu Tianyuan's hands. But as the 3 of them worked together to kill the Jade Shura, there was a sudden grunt from behind Lu Ping. Lu Ping's face changed, and he quickly turned around. He saw that Tian's chest had been pierced by a dagger-shaped companion spiritual treasure. Behind Tian, Blood Shura, who was grinning hideously, immediately panicked when he saw Lu Ping turn around. He wanted to pull back his companion's spiritual treasure and turn around to escape. But the companion spiritual treasure seemed to have taken root in Tian's chest, and it didn't move. Lu Ping could clearly see that Tian's hands were in front of his chest, and he was holding the dagger that had pierced through his chest. "Big brother!" Lu Ping's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The Blood Shura didn't even dare to take his companion's spiritual treasure anymore. He turned around and tried to escape, but it was too late. Just as he was about to pull out his companion's spiritual treasure to escape, it was already too late. The sword Chi of the dragon came roaring, and the Blood Shura was completely destroyed. But Tian's hands were still holding the companion's spiritual treasure in his chest, and he smiled at Lu Ping. Then his eyes lost their light and he fell to the ground. "Big brother!" Senior brother Tian. Tian's death shocked everyone in Zhenling. Almost all the cultivators in Zhenling went crazy. Even Xie Tianyang and the others were affected by this tragedy, and they all launched counterattacks. For a moment, although Lu Ping didn't have an absolute chance of winning because he was free, he actually had the upper hand. Before Lu Ping's sudden rise and Lu Tianyuan's smelting of the Dharma form soul, Tian was the well-deserved number 1 among the 3rd generation of disciples in Zhenling. When Lu Ping and Lu Tianyuan were still struggling to reach the core forging stage, Tian as the first disciple under Jiang Tianlin Laozu, had become Jiang Tianlin Laozu's right-hand man, and he began to take charge of the sect's affairs. In Zhenling, Tian was the most respected and most prestigious disciple among the entire third generation. Some even regarded him as a capable candidate for the next sect master of Zhenling. When the battle between Zhenling and Mara was at a stalemate, it was Tian who made the first sacrifice and killed Blood Shura at the cost of injury, which gave Zhenling a chance to breathe. When Han Wuya and Hua Wun retreated and Zhenling fell into the most critical situation, it was Tian who blocked Blood Shura's sneak attack at the cost of serious injury, which stabilized Lu Ping's last line of defense, which was already on the verge of collapse. But now, when Zhenling was about to achieve the final victory against Mara's army, Tian finally failed to escape Blood Shura's assassination. It was not that he could not escape, but that the successive serious injuries made it impossible for him to escape Blood Shura's attack from behind. Lu Ping reached out and grasped in the air, and a river of spiritual qi instantly formed. Tian's corpse floated on the river of spiritual qi and slowly floated into Zhenling's station. For the battle of this station, Zhenling had paid a heavy price. Lu Tianyuan and Lu Qiner had already entered the battlefield. With the successive deaths of an Azura and a Jade Shura, Zhenling had freed up enough manpower, and there was no doubt that Zhenling would win this battle. But at this time, all the Zhenling practitioners were holding back their anger, which was to seize as many battle points as possible, so that the practitioners from various sects who came out to take advantage of the situation would not be able to gain anything. At this time, the practitioners from various sects had already entered the battlefield. Although Mara's army still had the advantage of numbers, among the high-level practitioners above the Dharma phase, the human clan had an absolute advantage. And without Mara's harassment, Xia Tianyang and the others had also displayed their strength. The Blood Shura that had been harassing Xia Tianyang was lured away, and the Jade Shura in front of him was instantly stabbed twice by Xia Tianyang's sword. At this time, a mid-Dharma adept had also taken advantage of the situation and wanted to join Xia Tianyang in attacking the Jade Shura to steal the battle points. Get lost! Xia Tianyang roared, and the blazing sky sun sword did not attack the Jade Shura, but instead slashed at the mid-Dharma adept who was trying to steal the battle points. Ah, Xia Tianyang, what are you doing? Are you with Mara? This adept was quite unlucky. He had originally attacked Mara's escape route to steal the battle points, but he did not expect Xia Tianyang to turn and attack him instead. But the Jade Shura was also angry that someone had attacked her from behind, and she also threw her spiritual treasure at him. This adept was just an ordinary mid-Dharma adept who had taken advantage of the situation, so there was no way he could block the combined attack of the Jade Shura and the heir of the Ziyang Palace. He was immediately hit so hard that he spat out blood, and before he could take advantage of the situation, he was already covered in injuries. Although the adept was filled with hatred, the person in front of him was the heir of the Ziyang Palace, and he was not someone he could provoke. He had no choice but to retreat from the battle. With Xia Tianyang's status, since he had already made it clear that he would not allow others to steal the battle points, the other adepts all went around him. There was no need to offend the heir of a holy land. When an early Dharma adept joined the battle, the first thing he did was not to steal the battle points from Zhenling, but to fly directly to a position in the middle of the battlefield. Before this, when Tianfan Laozu had fallen, the spiritual treasure fan in his hand had fallen to the ground. Tianshui Laozu had also been prepared to die, so she naturally did not think of picking up the spiritual treasure. After that, the Longhuai ancestor had saved Tianshui Laozu, but under the attack of the Azura, he had not been able to pick up the spiritual treasure in time. As a result, the battle had continued until now, and the spiritual treasure had still been left there on the battlefield. There was more than one person who had their eyes on this spiritual treasure. Just as the early Dharma adept was about to snatch it, there were also two other Dharma adepts who had already discovered the location of the spiritual treasure, and they rushed forward to snatch it. However, right after that, a flash of sword light flashed past, so fast that no one could react in time. Following that, another two cries of pain could be heard. The two people who had snatched the spiritual treasure before the early Dharma adept had their wrists cut off by the sword light. A silhouette stood there and slowly squatted down. With both hands, he picked up the spiritual treasure fan and kept it in his ritual storage device. When he lifted his gaze to look at the few adepts who wanted to snatch the spiritual treasure, his eyes were filled with a cold, murderous intent. Lu Tianping, what are you trying to do? We came here with good intentions to help, but you actually attacked us so viciously. Lu Ping smiled sinisterly and said, Help? This is Jinling's spiritual treasure. Whoever tries to snatch it, I will kill them. His murderous intent surged in all directions like a huge wave, causing all the surrounding adepts to shut their mouths. This was a ruthless person who could even kill Azurus. At this time, no one dared to challenge Lu Ping's patience, and no one dared to go and verify what Lu Ping had said. When they had rushed to the battlefield under the guise of helping, they had indeed taken some of the pressure off Jinling. However, this was originally a battle that Jinling had already won. Even if these adepts had not rushed to help, Jinling would at most have delayed the time of victory. However, although these people had rushed into the battlefield at this time, in most cases, they did not fight to the death with Mara. Most of the time, they would leave after one blow. However, every time a blood Shura fell into a state of near death, these people would attack with all their might and snatch the last blow. They were the typical type of people who were only willing to take credit and not put in more effort. However, at this time, the Jinling adepts were already tired from the continuous battles, and there were very few who could snatch the last blow from these people. Qin Yu and Qin Gang had just used the power of the protective array to severely injure a blood Shura. They did not expect that immediately, 3 Dharma adepts would rush towards the blood Shura in front of them, wanting to give it the last blow. Qin Yu and Qin Gang were furious, but at this time, it was already too late for them to snatch it. Seeing that they were about to lose the points that they had worked so hard to obtain, a little person about a foot tall suddenly appeared behind the blood Shura and kicked the blood Shura's butt. The blood Shura immediately flew forward. Qin Yu and Qin Gang were overjoyed. The two quickly rushed forward. Qin Gang blocked the blood Shura's struggling attack, and Qin Yu took the opportunity to behead the blood Shura. Chapter 1287. The 3 Dharma adepts were furious that their attacks had missed. One of them yelled at Lu Shaohai, "What is this thing? Why does this Jinling have so many weird things?" When the other 2 people heard this, they quickly distanced themselves from this person, as if they didn't know this person. The cultivator was slightly taken aback. Then he saw Lu Shaohai was looking at him with a stubborn nose and snorted. The cultivator was startled. He was very familiar with the face of this little person. Previously, when he slaughtered everyone, he had shocked the surrounding cultivators. Could it be that this little person was the legendary avatar of Avatar? The cultivator suddenly realized why the other 2 had run so far away. They had no sense of loyalty. But it was better to avoid this little person first. He didn't want to attract the attention of the Jinling. Just as Lu Ping sent out his clone, the thin stream sword had already cut off the path of retreat for Mara, who was fighting Laozu of Sky Mountain. By then, the humans had already gained the upper hand. Seeing that the situation was not looking good for them, the Mara army began showing signs of collapsing. However, due to the fact that they had been entangled with Jinling faction for too long, the cultivators from the various sects had stepped in to assist them. Thus, it became harder for the Mara army to flee. The Jade Shura saw that the situation was not good, and it wanted to fight and retreat. But Lu Ping saw it, and he cut off its path of retreat. The Jade Shura panicked. After seeing Lu Ping kill the Azura, how could a Mara not panic when it saw Lu Ping? But the more panicked the Jade Shura was, the more openings it revealed. A lotus bloomed under Lu Ping's feet, and the Jade Shura was immediately suspended in the air. Although it was only for a short moment, it was enough for Laozu of Sky Mountain to smash the Jade Shura's head with his axe. Qin Yu, Qin Gang, Lu Qiner, and Lu Tianyuan all killed their opponents with Lu Ping's help. Jinling's side was now more confident when it came to fighting for Blood Mara's battle glory. After Lu Ping helped Laozu of Sky Mountain kill the Jade Shura, Laozu of Sky Mountain immediately went to help the other cultivators who were fighting Jade Mara. The cultivators who came out to fight were all very smart. Aside from getting the last hit, if they weren't confident, they wouldn't fight Mara head-on. Aside from some of them who had good training, most of them were only going for blood Mara. They didn't want to fight the Jade Shura. Aside from the Jade Shura's power, they didn't want to fight her. More importantly, the cultivators on Zhenling's side who were fighting the Jade Shura were difficult to deal with. Chan Yu and Chan Xiang originally had a hard time facing the 2 Jade Mara and the 2 Blood Shura after Lu Tianyuan left. But after Lu Tianyuan, Lu Qiner, and the Qin brothers were freed up, the first to help were the 2 sisters. Without the Blood Shura holding them back, the 2 sisters were planning to raise their spirits and show the power of the Heavenly Moon Sect's female cultivators. Unexpectedly, just as the 2 of them worked together to suppress the 2 Jade Mara in front of them, Hanyu Laozu of the Blue Mountain Sect suddenly attacked the Jade Demon from behind. He killed the Jade Demon in one fell swoop and snatched 15 battle glory from the 2 sisters. The 2 sisters, Chan Yu and Chan Xiang, had fought with Imo Luo for half a day and finally had the chance to kill points with great difficulty. Who would have thought that someone would appear out of nowhere and snatch away the points that they were about to obtain? The 2 direct disciples of the Heavenly Moon Sect instantly exploded with anger. This time, the Frost Feather ancestor had really provoked a hornet's nest. The 2 sisters easily killed the remaining Jade Shura. Then, the 2 sisters didn't fight with the others for battle glory. Instead, they stared at Hanyu Laozu. Wherever he went, the 2 sisters would follow far behind. Once Hanyu Laozu tried to snatch the battle glory from others, the 2 sisters would immediately attack. Even if they couldn't snatch it, the 2 sisters definitely wouldn't let Hanyu Laozu snatch it himself. The 2 of them also wouldn't fall out with Hanyu Laozu. Instead, they stuck close to him like sticky candy. Hanyu Laozu could be considered an expert among the mid-Dharma adepts. He could also control one of the sect's first calamity spirit treasures. The Blue Mountain Sect could be considered a large sect in the Central Plains. If it was just based on individual power, Chan Yu and Chan Xiang were on par with him. However, ever since Han Yu snatched a Jade Demon from the 2 of them, the 3 of them started to fight. Hanyu Laozu tried to snatch and kill 2 Blood Shura twice, but he didn't succeed. Instead, he was killed by the 2 sisters. After that, there were 2 more chances for him to snatch and kill the Jade Demon, which was destroyed by the 2 sisters. Ever since Hanyu Laozu snatched a Jade Demon from the beginning, he didn't get any more after being harassed by the 2 sisters. Hanyu Laozu suppressed his anger. However, he was the one who made the first move, so he didn't have any reason to argue with the 2 sisters. Hanyu Laozu wanted to force the 2 sisters to retreat, but when he thought of their status, Hanyu didn't have any confidence. The Blue Mountain Sect couldn't compare to the Heavenly Moon Sect. He couldn't argue with them, couldn't beat them, and couldn't afford to offend them. Hanyu Laozu had no choice but to beg for mercy from the 2 sisters. Unfortunately, the 2 sisters didn't care at all. As long as Hanyu Laozu made a move, the 2 sisters would follow behind him again. It was said that the female practitioners of the Heavenly Moon Sect were difficult to deal with. Even the Crystal Palace would have a headache whenever they saw them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to resist the Crystal Palace for thousands of years. Today, he had accidentally offended these 2 women. He really reaped what he sowed. Aside from the 2 sisters, there was another person who was frantically fighting for points. However, this person wasn't one of the cultivators from the various sects who came under the banner of rescue. It was Xie Tianyang. Without Blood Mara holding him back, how could the Jade Shura be Xie Tianyang's opponent? The blazing sky sun sword danced in the air like a fireball, burning the Jade Shura trapped in the sword formation into a dried corpse. Then, Xie Tianyang began to fight for points on the battlefield. Xie Tianyang had been provoked by Lu Ping. Before the last battle began, Lu Ping's points had already reached 50. After that, Lu Ping killed 2 Blood Shura. Then, with the help of Han Weia and Huo Wuin, the 2 great cultivators who had their minds controlled, he killed 2 Jade Shura and 1 Jade Demon. At this time, Lu Ping's points had reached a terrifying 91. But that wasn't the end. Lu Ping cast Sky Opening Swordsmanship and successfully killed an Azura, earning him 20 battle points. His battle points on the projection stone rose to a despairing 111 points. Although Xie Tianyang couldn't see Lu Ping's reflecting stone, he remembered Lu Ping's points clearly. Looking at his own reflecting stone, which only had 23 points, Xie Tianyang was annoyed. Although Lu Ping had killed an Azura, Xie Tianyang still didn't believe that there was such a big gap between him and Lu Ping. Compared to those cultivators who were fighting for battle credits, Xie Tianyang appeared even crazier and more unscrupulous. He did not even spare the blood demon Azura who was fighting against the cultivators of Zhenling sect. With a single slash, he killed a blood Azura who was fighting against Yunjian, leaving Yunjian baffled. But then he saw Xie Tianyang enter the fight between Green Fox and the others, and kill 2 blood Shuras. Yunjian murmured to himself, "This Xie Tianyang must be crazy." Fortunately, Xie Tianyang wasn't completely crazy. As Green Fox and the others watched in shock, the blazing sky sun sword knocked away the Jade Shura's spiritual treasure and then flew to the next target. Without the protection of the spiritual treasure, the Jade Shura was beaten up by Green Fox and the others. After a while, the Jade Shura was killed by Green Fox. Qinghu cursed angrily, while Qinghu smiled bitterly. This guy. Xie Tianyang was like a starving ferocious beast. He was so hungry that he could not be choosy. After snatching Cloud's word, Cyan Fox, and the others, he charged into the other battles and began to plunder the battle points of others. Amidst the cries and curses of the cultivators from the various sects who had rushed over to rescue him, Xie Tianyang's raging inferno heaven sun sword did not give anyone a chance to reason with him and only cared about killing. "Xie Tianyang, what are you doing? There's no need for you to interfere with this blood demon. Get lost." Xie Tianyang spat out these words viciously, and he had already run into the middle of the battle that was surrounding the 2 blood Azuras. A mid-Dharma adept saw Xie Tianyang rushing over with a murderous look and wanted to stop him. At the same time he said, "Friend Xie, I am Kuan, get lost." Xie Tianyang destroyed all the magic treasures of the cultivator of the same level who had not even had the time to report his name. He spat out a mouthful of blood and rushed into the battle. Amidst the screams and curses of the crowd, he beheaded 2 blood Azuras. The cultivator who had been sent flying by Xie Tianyang struggled to get up and said, "Xie Tianyang, aren't you afraid of angering the crowd?" Xie Tianyang squinted and said in an evil voice, "Fine, I'm angering the crowd. Come at me." The friar was furious. He pointed at Xie Tianyang and said, "You?" For a long time, he couldn't say a word. Then he remembered that Xie Tianyang was the proud disciple of the number 1 holy land in Central Plains, Ziyang Palace. He was born to be the only one who could offend others. He thought about how his accusations seemed to have angered Xie Tianyang. Would this attract the wrath of Ziyang Palace for his own sect? So he coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body trembled and he didn't know whether it was from fear or anger. He didn't even care about fighting for the points and left Zhenling Station in a hurry. Not long after, Su Jin, Sang Yu, Xiahou Wushang, and the others also finished off their opponents and joined in the fight for the points. As for Zhenling's own practitioners, except for the strong practitioners like Laozu of Tianshan and Lu Tianyuan who were still participating in the battle, the rest of the early Dharma adepts all retreated to Zhenling Station. Other practitioners with ulterior motives took the opportunity to attack Zhenling Station. At this time, Lu Ping had taken advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was focused on the battle for points to sneak into the Qingming River's water vein. Chapter 1288. The outcome of the battle outside the True Spirit encampment had already been decided. All that was left was for the cultivators from the various sects to hunt down Mo Luo and plunder his points, as well as Ancestor Lin Yu and Ancestor Long Huai who were entangled with the 2 Azuras. While everyone was focused on stealing points, Lu Ping returned to the base after helping Laozu of Sky Mountain kill the Jade Shura. At the array board's location, Ling Long had retracted the water vein's support to the array formation. But Lu Ping still left Lu Xiaohai for Black Fox to protect himself. He then summoned San Ling and the others to guard the array board. At the same time, seeing the chaos outside the encampment, Lu Ping ordered Lu Qin, Yun Jian, the Qin brothers, and the others to retreat to the encampment just in case. Seeing that everything was fine, Lu Ping cast the water transformation secret technique and snuck into the Qingming River. With the protection of the pure Yang spiritual treasure, the water transformation secret technique, Lu Ping's mastery of the water transformation secret technique grew stronger. Back then he was able to escape from the Five Elements sect and the other sects' search for him. Now, it was a piece of cake for him to sneak into the Qingming River and find the water vein. At this moment, the waters of the Qingming River were still turbulent. However, compared to before, the extent of the turbulence had decreased significantly. It was clear that after the various sects had gathered in the Nine Profound Tower, they had already reduced the pressure on the Nine Profound Tower, even though they had yet to launch a large-scale attack on the evil Luo army. This time, Lu Ping wanted to secretly separate a small branch from the Qingming River's main water vein. Then, he would use the Ling Long wine cauldron that was used to suppress the five-elemental ring in the encampment's array disk to guide the branch to the encampment. Although the secret technique of separating and guiding the water vein was only in the hands of a few sects, it was obviously nothing to the spirit treasure transformed from the water transformation talisman. Moreover, with the exquisite dragon and the five-element ring as a suppression, it was completely possible to stabilize the water vein. Most importantly, Jinling's base was not far from the Qingming River. He didn't need to open a canal like Wuxing School to guide the water. He only needed to connect to an underground river to guide the water. The only worry was that when he separated the water vein, no matter how big or small the water vein was, it would inevitably cause a change in the Qingming River. Such a big movement would inevitably attract the attention of those with ulterior motives. Therefore, Lu Ping could only seize the opportunity during the battle with Mo Luo to separate the water vein and divert the cultivator's attention. While the various sects were fighting, Debao had already opened up an underground river under the surface of the Qingming River with Dagui that led directly to the array disk at the encampment more than 200 feet deep. Lu Ping was hundreds of feet deep in the Qingming River, with a huge pair of scissors hovering over his head. In front of him was the misty water of the Qingming River. Lu Ping looked at the mantis on his shoulder and said, "Are you sure there's no problem?" The mantis tilted its head, as if it was rolling its eyes, and said, "You should worry about whether you still have enough Jinyuan to control the main body of the spiritual treasure after a series of battles." Lu Ping laughed and said, "It's almost time." At that moment, the Jade Mara outside the base had been killed, and the only ones left were the Blood Mara, who were fleeing in all directions, and the two Azuras who were being entangled by Linyu Laozu and Longhuai Ancestor. At that moment, Laozu of Tianshan happened to be chasing behind a blood demon. This blood demon was surrounded by more than 10 big Mara. They were resisting Laozu of Tianshan while trying their best to break out of the encirclement and return to Mara's base camp along the Qingming River. At that moment, a spear flew in front of Mara's army, piercing through two great Azuras in front of it, and headed straight for the blood demon that was surrounded by the big Mara. Laozu of Tianshan narrowed his eyes, and the mountain-splitting axe in his hand arrived first. There was an explosion in the air, and the spear was knocked away by the second tribulation spiritual treasure. "This is the old man's prey, don't you dare snatch it." Laozu of Tianshan stretched out his hand and recalled the mountain-splitting axe. The blood demon was suddenly blocked by a human practitioner, and it was in a panic. It was obvious that Laozu of Tianshan, who was chasing after it, had gotten into a conflict with the person in front of it. He did not even care about the minions around him, and he flew straight to the side, which happened to be above the surface of the Qingming River. Laozu of Tianshan snorted coldly and was about to chase after him, but he saw that the spear had also landed in the hands of a mid-Dharma adept. He snorted coldly at Laozu of Tianshan and said, "Your sect has already won today's battle, and you have accumulated enough battle merits. Why don't you give them a share?" Naturally, Ancestor Tianshan didn't have a good attitude towards these people. However, this wasn't the time to turn hostile. He just said coldly, "Battle merits are earned through real strength. They aren't given to you by others, nor are they obtained through trickery." The friar's face turned red. He obviously knew that Lao Tzu of Tianshan was mocking them for being the third party in a fight. They did not expect Zhenling to win so quickly that they did not even have time to react. Zhenling's side had already almost killed Mara, who had accumulated the most battle merits. The friar took a deep breath and said, "Today's matter is indeed a little shameful, but as you said earlier, battle merits are earned through fighting. Therefore, I still want to fight for this blood demon." Lao Tzu of Tianshan glanced at the Qingming River and suddenly laughed. "As you wish then." The two of them fought at the same time. Although they did not attack each other, they were able to block each other from attacking the blood demon. At the same time, when the blood demon saw that the two of them had blocked its escape route, it decided to go all out and fight the two of them. The two of them and the blood demon fought fiercely on the surface of the Qingming River. In an instant, the Qingming River was turned upside down, and the waves surged as if there was a hurricane on the sea. The adept with the spear laughed and said, "Although you have a second disaster spiritual treasure, your strength may not be that strong. This is a little disappointing. Then take my next blow." There was another loud sound, and the Qingming River once again surged with waves that were 20 to 30 feet high. The entire river began to shake. At this moment, Azura, who was frightened by the unkillable Longhuai ancestor, saw that his side was about to be slaughtered, and thought of running away. Ancestor Longhuai still wanted to stop Azura, but he didn't grasp the right moment to stop Azura this time, and he was swept away by the aura of Azura's companion spirit treasure, causing him to fall all the way into Azure Netherriver. Longhuai ancestor took the opportunity to shake off the force on his body into the river to dissolve it. This section of the river was even pushed back for more than 30 feet, and then an even bigger wave was stirred up. Amidst the muffled rumbling sounds, the section of Qingming River outside of Zhenling's encampment was filled with strong winds and huge waves. Under the impact of the huge waves, the cultivators from various sects who were still fighting could feel that the shore on this side of the river was constantly swaying from the impact of the huge waves. They all secretly sighed in their hearts at how this Zhenling could produce so many evildoers. 2 miles upstream of the encampment, there was a water vein that was more than 100 feet deep. Not far away, the turbulence caused by the battle could even be clearly felt from here. Lu Ping smiled lightly and said, "It's about time, let's begin." The mantis jumped down from Lu Ping's shoulder and disappeared into the scissors in his hand. Then, a bluish-purple halo began to enshroud the scissors. Lu Ping's right hand suddenly opened, and with a zing sound, the edge of the scissors suddenly opened up. Then, with all of Lu Ping's divine sense, he finally seized the opportunity to cut along the edge of the main water vein, and a water vein as thick as a chopstick was immediately separated from the main water vein. And at the moment when the pure yang spiritual treasure scissors were cut, the entire Qingming River suddenly shook, directly affecting the surface of the water from more than 100 feet deep. Waves surged up and pounced in all directions. In an instant, the flow of the Qingming River seemed to be in chaos. The waves collided with each other and very quickly, layer upon layer, piled up to a height of several tens of feet, and then fell down heavily, smashing on the edge of the river, as if the entire ground was shaking. Under the water, Lu Ping almost lost his balance under this violent turbulence. Seeing that the small water vein that was separated was about to merge with the main water vein again, Lu Ping hung the water moon repellent pearl above his head, and soon he was no longer affected by the turbulence of the river. Lu Ping took the opportunity to cast attraction array, and the Linglong wine cauldron that was suppressing the 5-element ring shook. The separated water vein finally no longer merged with the main water vein, and the silver fox near the array disc quickly ordered several array masters of Zhenling to open the traction array. Under the effect of the 5-element ring and the Linglong wine cauldron, the small water vein that was separated by Lu Ping finally slowly lengthened from the main water vein, and spread towards the underground water channel opened by Debao. "It's done!" Lu Ping was overjoyed. With the help of this small water vein, he could save a lot of cultivation resources for Zhenling's encampment, and it would also improve the encampment's defense. Another deafening rumble rang out from the Xian Netherworld River as Patriarch Long Huai was flung from the surface of the river to the shore by the Azura. He crashed into a cliff on the shore, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to shake. The Azura finally broke free from Patriarch Long Huai's entanglement and fled downstream along the Cyan Netherworld River. In Jinling's encampment, when the earth shook, the encampment also shook. The silver fox's face lit up with joy, and she said, "It's done." Then, the blue light that leaked out from the Linglong wine cauldron suddenly disappeared, and the 5-element ring shone brightly. Fortunately, the silver fox and the others quickly suppressed it, and the sudden strengthening of the array formation did not appear on the protective array formation outside the encampment. Outside the encampment, Longhuai Ancestor, who was thrown away by the Azura, jumped out of the shore unscathed. Seeing that the Azura had actually escaped, it turned around and joined the battle between Lin Yu Laozu and the other Azura. The battle outside the encampment had ended, and only the Azura that Lin Yu Laozu and Longhuai Ancestor were suppressing was left. At this time, it could not escape even if it wanted to. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.